I think we'd still like to do a site visit, so perhaps we can set something up between now and the next meeting to come out.
Sure, no, that makes sense. I'll, I guess, start with Michelle, and we'll get that coordinated, and I can be your tour guide, and, yeah, I look forward to doing that.
And unless I'm mistaken, I think a lot of the board members would prefer a Saturday or Sunday, possibly, weekend, so it doesn't interfere with other work schedules, if that's possible.
I noted that. So I think Wednesday was thrown out there, but weekends are fine by me.
Okay.
That's all I got for you tonight.
Any other questions, comments from professionals or board members at this point?
There's the overall site plan, just to kind of remind you of what we looked at a couple months ago. Building area A is the bottom right corner. That's the southwest corner of the site. It's a 160,000 square foot warehouse that's proposed in an area that's completely paved with a parking lot. Building area B is to the east, kind of central east location there, and that's what we call studio backlot development, which includes a 20,000 square foot movie studio, and those three other rectangular beige areas are actually like streetscape sets that are put up. So it's a pretty unique project, pretty cool. And that's also proposed in an area that's a parking lot right now. It's all asphalt. And then building area B is an 80,000 square foot warehouse in the northeast corner. And that's proposed in an area that looks like it might be a green site, but it actually had an 80,000 square foot building and parking area previously in that location. They've been kind of storing some fill on that location. So all three sites are, redevelopment of existing asphalt areas, which is a great reuse. Using all existing utility infrastructure. Stormwater is great because we just have to meet the redevelopment regulations from DEC. So three nice projects that we're looking forward to working with the board on. All three have, they're in different stages as far as tenants go. I know the board had asked last time about that. Looks like the front runner is the building area C, the backlot studio. They're signed up, as well as building A, the warehouse, and building area B is under negotiations right now. So all three are real projects, and I think it might be a good thing that we separated them out into the three applications, because there's more flexibility to kind of move along.
So aside from the separate applications from the original, there's no difference in the plans that we're seeing today?
Correct.
Okay.
Tomorrow, I think, yeah.
So I just want to make sure we count the 30 days before we declare our lead.
Sure. So that'll be ready tomorrow.
I have one other question about parking. I noticed on, I guess, building area A, that the building is going in an existing parking lot, and I think there probably were some spaces just from my memory of some of the uses that are in this existing building here. There were some parking spaces for that building in this area, in this lot. I don't know if it was in the area where the building is now located, but are you proposing that all parking that may have once been, parking spaces that once have been utilized, building will all be pushed into this area? Is that the goal?
Yeah, right now, actually, that's where most folks are parking for that building, is in that existing lot that's north of our proposed building. But there's also parking, I believe, on the south side of the building if you go up to the east. Yeah, back there, and also I think to the right side, it's not shown as being striped. If you go to the right of the building, yeah, right in that area, there's also parking. So at least during my site visits during the week, I don't think there was any parking per se in our proposed building area A.
So we just need to make sure that whatever parking we assign for this building, if it's being removed for this footprint, we just need to make sure that it's being relocated over here, which I'm just working on the not parking. I just
Yeah.
need to make sure that's on a plan.
Sure, yeah, we can do that. And we submitted a parking table. Yeah, it's a little, a little confusing because there's, you know, a million buildings and a million uses, but there's definitely enough parking for all of them on the sites.
So that's a question I had also. Are all those, I think there's 179 spaces allocated to that, you know, that parcel A. Are they all for that use, or are they being shared with other areas?
I think the way we did it on the bulk table and the parking tables for each site plan, I think we just showed the parking spaces that were basically adjacent to the new uses. So for instance, for building A, all of the parking is on the right side of the building. And I think that's what's reflected in the parking bulk tables on each site plan. But the parking table that we submitted kind of does it by lot. You know, lot 7 is the bold lot where buildings A and C are located, and building B is located on what's called lot 3. So the table is broken up more into each lot. It takes into
Yeah, right.
account-
This table, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So for this table, it says warehouse A, and it allocates 179 spaces. I mean, I guess the point I'm getting to, not to beat around the bushes, I just, you know, we've started to look at the traffic stuff and the site plan in more detail now, but I'm trying to rectify the traffic generation and the parking such that, you know, I want them both to be correct, but, you know, based right now on the traffic generation that's in front of us, there's a lot more parking. So, you know, I think the traffic, the peak hour traffic based on the warehouse use, and I think any, you know, any information we can gain on the tenant and the specific use of the warehouse, or what, you know, how it's gonna function, and staffing levels and things like that would be beneficial.
Sure.
So that we get, you know, both aspects of it correct, because right now, I think the peak hour traffic generation is, you know, less than 30 cars, but we have almost 180 parking spaces, so, you know, they're not really in balance. You know, we don't necessarily need to build all that parking if it's not needed, or we need to make sure we're accommodating the right amount of traffic.
Right, okay.
Do you expect a significant change in the service level with that parking, or just want to make sure we're documenting it for you?
Well, I mean, it appears that we're building a lot of parking spaces that will never be used for this development. So whether those spots can be assigned to other parts of, you know, iPark, or, you know, or utilized as overflow parking for something, it's fine, but they're not really gonna be utilized for this one. So, you know, if it could be a reduction in you know, in impervious surfaces or something, that, you know, that might be beneficial if that's the case. I did have one other question related to just even the pavement. I think there was a couple of details about, you know, tying into the existing and then a new pavement. Do you anticipate, you know, overlaying everything?
No, I think there's gonna be enough regrading within those areas that it's gonna be a new pavement.
It's gonna be new pavement everywhere?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
With regard to the parking needed for the warehouse, that made me think of a question. So is it primarily just storage, or is there other activities going on in the warehouse? Like, are you constructing or manufacturing, anything like that?
No, it's not manufacturing.
Just storage?
It's warehouse storage. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it indicates there's, of the 160,000, there's 8,000 of it that's gonna be allocated to office space.
Okay.
But, you know, as a support use of the warehouse.
Is that true for both warehouses, or just the?
Both warehouses
okay.
have 8,000 square foot offices, correct?
So you really probably don't need all of that parking for the current proposed use?
I'll have to check with my client, actually, as far as the tenant specifics go, but I can make a note to check on that, because according to the code, obviously, we exceed it, you know, but I'm not as familiar with the actual tenants that are going in there and their
Okay.
parking.
Or if you would have like truck storage or something like that on site, or trailer storage or something like that?
Yeah, and that's
I don't
shown
mean trucks.
on the site plans as well. That's in addition to the counts for, the parking
Okay.
is more for employee parking,
Okay.
car parking.
I think the number they came up with, Lori, was just basically driven straight from the code, being, so many spaces per thousand of warehouse and of office space. So it's just, based on, that's why I'm saying, having more information about the tenant and whether it's gonna be shift work and shift overlap and things like that, we can make a better determination then.
That's fair.
Yep, I can hunt that down.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, we thank you. We'll look
Thanks.
forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. Have a good night.
The next item on the agenda is Trump National Golf Course.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Brian Frieswick. I'm the general manager at Trump National Golf Club, Hudson Valley. And I'm here today to look for site plan approval for the rebuild and slight expansion of our cart barn that was destroyed in the fire last month. The previous cart barn that we had was approximately 43 feet by 100 feet. We're looking to expand to 43 feet by 130 feet. The height, width, and design of the building will be in kind, with the exception of that length adjustment that we were talking about. We have submitted to the town building department also for a inspection of our slab to make sure that it is safe. Our engineers have deemed it so, but we have submitted that for their look also. But happy to answer any questions that you may have about our intentions and what we're looking to do. And I think, Michelle, you have the site plan amendments up, so happy to answer any questions you may have.
Why the expansion?
We weren't able to fit all of our carts in there. We have 75 carts, plus we have a couple beverage carts and utility vehicles. We had to keep them outside.
Okay.
So we're looking to make enough room so we can winterize them and keep them inside throughout the winter.
Will the exterior elevation be similar to what it was before?
It'll be the same, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll
Same
be-
materials?
Correct. Same material, same cedar shakes. Our intention is to build in kind with the exception of just the extension.
Okay.
The blueprint actually makes it look like it's different, though. The roof structure looks different.
It is slightly, the extension that is on the back, it lengthened because it lengthened, we had to adjust that, so there is more space in between. It still has the same amount of ventilation, same amount of motors to make sure that there's enough air exchange within the building. In fact, there's probably, now that they're spaced out a little more, it's probably actually a little better than what we had before. Also, we're switching from lead acid batteries to lithium ion batteries. So the hydrogen issue that is normally with lithium ion, with lead acid won't be in the same case, but we still have the ventilation just to be safe.
Yeah, if you look at the drawing on the right, the roof structure looks different than the drawing on the left. Like
Yes.
there's a secondary elevation on top of.
Correct.
The roof.
What we're looking to do also, and thank you for bringing that up, is that we aim to put a storage area, a 15 feet wide for the entire length of the building, so we can store inside there as well. So
It's like a loft area, you mean?
exactly right.
Okay.
But just to confirm, the outside of the building will look exactly the same, except for the 30 extra feet along the length.
Correct.
Well,
Will not look the
loft
same.
is
The
gonna
roof
add
line's
another
gonna be
roof.
different. It's definitely different.
Yeah. If you're adding a loft on the right drawing, it appears that there's a second roof elevation on that right side. Do you have a riser diagram of the structure?
Michelle, is this gonna go back to ARB even though it's the same?
Well, that's,
with the
that's,
difference in the
that's
roof?
why I asked that question, because if it's originally, I thought it would be the same.
Yeah, it looks like it changes from like a hip roof to a gambrel roof, right?
That too, yeah.
Okay.
Thought I had the plans with me to show that. But yes, you're right, there would be a slight adjustment since we do have that walkway that was in there before. The trusses did allow for a walkway previous, we just didn't do it. Back in 2005 when we had it, we just kept it as a closed truss. But it did, the original plan did have that option, but we decided not to use it.
If the appearance of the building changes at all, we need to send it to ARC.
Okay.
So, we can do that, and then you can meet with them, and what we can do is, I have a resolution of approval prepared for you. We can condition for the approval from the ARC, okay? I mean, ultimately, they're actually just reviewing it and then making a recommendation back to the planning board,
Okay.
who ultimately approves it. So what we would do is we do the resolution and then just condition for their review.
Certainly.
Okay, so could I have a motion to refer this to the ARC?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the resolution? Resolution of amended site plan approval, Trump National Golf Course. Whereas the cart barn at Trump National Golf Course was destroyed in a fire, whereas the above referenced applicant applied to the Town of East Fishkill Planning Board for an amended site plan approval to rebuild and increase the length of the approved cart barn 30 feet, and whereas the proposed cart barn would be enlarged to 43 by 130 feet in size to accommodate additional storage for golf clubs,
Shouldn't that say carts?
golf carts. We'll amend that. Thank you. Whereas the proposed cart barn would be located in the same location as the previously approved 43 by 100-foot cart barn, and whereas the architecture of the proposed structure would remain,
We'll strike that.
we will just strike that whereas. Whereas the 30-foot portion of the existing cart path in front of the cart barn would be removed and the cart path behind the pool would be shortened to accommodate the 30-foot increase in the length of the structure. And whereas the cart barn addition would not displace any parking, and whereas the action is considered a type 2 action under seeker and no further seeker review is required. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board approves the amended site plan titled Trump National Cart Storage Building, 178 Stormville Road, Hopewell Junction, New York, prepared by Innovative Engineering LLC, dated 9/27/21.
Subject to the following condition.
Yes. Approval
And
from
then
the
it would be
ARC.
approval from
Subject
review of ARC, actually.
Review.
Okay, so
Do we want to say something like satisfactory review, or?
They're
approval.
gonna have to make a recommendation back to you, and then you are gonna have to, they're probably gonna have to come on again for you to confirm that they actually did whatever the ARC is requesting, if they request anything.
Wouldn't it just be easier to say, subject to their satisfactory review, since it's really a insignificant modification?
I think that would be acceptable.
What if it's not satisfactory? So
Then
I
Then
don't
it
wanna
would come
put them
back
in a
to you.
position where they're
Yeah.
gonna have to be bouncing back between.
Then we come back to you.
Okay,
It's not gonna-
so
Subject-
subject to the satisfactory review by the ARC. Correct? Be it further resolved that within 5 business days,
I'm sorry, I had a question. Do we need to do anything to allow you to start the structure, if not the roof? Because the roof is the only thing that's changing on the building, right?
So they already actually got approval to start the foundation during the
We want
weather,
to
because,
include that here?
I think you got that through the building department already, right? They gave you approval to start the foundation, yeah. Because it was a fire, so
As
they,
far as you need to go, or is there anything else?
I think
facility.
have you already started working on the, foundation at this
No,
point?
no, we haven't. We wanted to wait until we had the meeting tonight before we started anything.
Okay.
Yeah, because I
So
would
we
think
could
you
add
would
that,
need
that would be,
approval to expand the foundation to cover the new part there, yeah.
I think they were gonna just start the initial things until they got the approval.
Right.
So do you want to add that then, just to?
Might as well, yeah.
so that condition will read how? Or is that a whereas?
Something like ability to,
Well, the-
Yeah,
complete foundation work
A
pending.
foundation permit can be issued to allow construction and foundation to begin, because it's weather sensitive, so you get started.
Right, if you have to pour.
Okay, anything else? So, be it further resolved that within 5 business days of the adoption of this resolution, the chair or other duly authorized member of the planning board should cause a copy of this resolution to be filed with the town clerk and copy sent to the applicant owner. Can I have a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved. Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
And 1 abstention. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Emma's Cafe. Is there anyone here for applicant Emma's Cafe? We'll save that for a little later in the meeting to see if anyone arrives. Next item on the agenda is Summit Woods. Summit Woods, I think, came before us many years ago. If we could just have sort of a brief reintroduction to the project, because virtually all of the board members are new, with the exception of Lori and me.
Good evening, Mark Day, Day in Stokoza. Summit Woods has been around a good 20 years. It's in Stormville. It's located in the area of Route 216. We're proposing 175 conventional lots, cluster layout. The roads would be town road. New information since it was last here. The project's gone through a DEIS, FEIS. In the original submission, submittal years ago, there was a regional wastewater treatment plant proposed to be shared with the adjoining property, which is on the agenda later, Montage. Since that time, the town has asked us to become involved in the Four Corners water and sewer system. So many of the items that were, let's say, I'm going to call it controversial, was the water and the sewer on the site. Both those have been, now in my mind, been mitigated, as we will be installing both force main and water main to the Four Corners project. Other than that, there's really no large changes being made. The lot layout is relatively the same, and really nothing else has been done.
Mark, you still have the plan that whichever project goes first does the infrastructure for the water and sewer?
Well, in this case, both projects will actually operate independently of each other because they are going to Four Corners. There is a connection on this property that connects to the adjoining property so that when the time comes, the water can be looped. There's really no need to loop the sewer, but there is still easements in place in the event that, say, Montage went through. They would have emergency egress through the Summit Woods project. That was something that was developed through the DEIS, FEIS stages.
I'm talking about you're going to have to pipe between your project and Four Corners, right?
Right.
So you're not going to pipe separately?
We are.
The two.
They pipe separately down 216 and they meet where 216 meets and goes towards Four Corners.
So where it makes the bend by the deli and up to Phillips Road.
Correct.
And Lori, maybe that's another change in the concept, as Mark indicated, the package plant, for lack of a better, is eliminated. The developers are going to work with the town. There's been an engineering firm selected to do the design of what will be a municipal facility. So the trunk line from Four Corners connection down and the pump stations will all be part of a public system. And these parcels would be placed inside town sewer districts, standalone sewer districts. So that is a change in what the original concept had been. So that is part of the progress, it's progressing. As I said, the engineering has been selected, the developers are gonna pay for that directly to offset the costs. And we'll be working through the details of establishing the appropriate sewer district and the appropriate other agreements that are gonna be necessary.
So does that bring then, the town does the construction on the actual municipal part of this, or the developer
It
does?
may very well, these are the details that we've fleshed out, there's
Okay.
several different ways.
So
But it
it's
will
in
be.
process.
But ultimately, both sites will be served by municipal sewer that will be controlled just as a regular sewer district in the town.
Does this then enable other properties between this one and,
Correct,
Four Corners
that
to
was the
loop
main
in?
impetus on the town's part to attempt to have that connection done, because this will allow several pump stations in the Stormville area where other connections can be made less costly for existing residences and businesses.
Correct.
Was this the only issue that we had with regards to which development went first? Was the utility side of
There was
things?
also egress. The Montage project has one egress. So what was arranged was an access easement over the, this project, Summit Woods project, utilizing that connection road. And the emergency egress, if it were built first, would be in line with the proposed roadway that we show here.
Now, the proposed roadway at the top is the one that comes out on 52 near the intersection of 216, where they're talking about a roundabout for this? or-
Correct.
Okay. Do we have any other?
And does the one at the bottom, that it also hits 52?
Yes.
That comes out somewhere, what, around,
Right at the base of Stormville Mountain.
at the base of Stormville Mountain?
Correct.
So
at
there'd
the
be
post office or further down?
Oh, further down.
So there'd be a new road past like that Pumpkin Glen and,
Yes, oh yeah, Pumpkin Glen is actually in the, see the area that's,
the blank squares there?
yeah, Pumpkin Glen is actually to the north on this. It's between this and Montage. Pumpkin Glen's a little further to the north.
Okay.
But those lots on front, those are all the single-family lot exceptions that are on 52. So just before you start up the hill, this roadway would actually come out onto Route 52.
Brendan, how's that gonna work with, cars and trucks coming down Stormville Mountain at a good rate of speed for cars trying to come out onto the road there?
Yeah, I think, we had a couple of comments regarding that. I mean, I think one would be helpful just to even label the side roads, so we can actually orient ourselves well in that map. But I think if I understand it right, at least looking at this plan, the idea was to have one full movement access where it's Summit Woods Boulevard, then the other one would be just a rights in, rights out.
Correct.
So I think I think that's how it's being handled. And then there was, on 52, if I remember right, there's a development of a left turn lane into the site, but also a left turn lane for one of the side roads that are there.
Correct.
No, that hasn't been progressed with the DOT at all yet, though.
Right, no.
But that's, I think that's at least a conceptual idea at the moment.
Any other significant changes to the lot layout or anything like that?
No, everything has remained the same as far as lot layouts. We haven't done anything. On the original plan, the upper cul-de-sac used to loop back around, but in order to mitigate wetlands disturbance, we just converted it to a cul-de-sac.
And that cul-de-sac meets all of our town requirements to connect with it?
I'm not so sure about that one. I think the length of it might exceed the code requirement.
Okay, that's what I was
think
gonna
in
ask.
some of
It
those
looks
things,
long.
even some of we identified just, some of the horizontal and vertical curvature and the roadway layout. I mean, I think it should be evaluated against the code to make sure that everything meets the code. And I
Is
don't-
that assuming that we are using that access road or not?
Again, if that's the case, or that's the condition, I guess we have to, that has to be understood. But, I mean, right now, I think the length of it exceeds the code. So if there's a connection into Montage, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's right up top. You can see
But
the
it's-
50-foot right away.
I think
But
they're
that's where you'd
talking about
start
it
measuring
at the
the
left on the
distance.
bottom there, that would be a cul-de-sac that would be too far from the main road, is that the issue here?
Well, it's the length of the cul-de-sac, so I think it's,
Right, it's,
that Stony Brook, is that what it's called? I mean, if it's an emergency access point, I'm not sure if that, I mean, we have to evaluate that to whether it meets the code or not. And I don't know if there's any, Tom, if there's anything that gets grandfathered in because of this project being here, or it gets put again, I don't know if anything's even different from 20 years ago, but.
We're gonna have, I mean, we're gonna take a look at that. I don't think it's,
So are there any other questions or comments from board members or professionals?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a few things. So we issued a memo. At this point, the plans are preliminary. There's a lot more engineering, obviously, that has to be done to them. Brendan mentioned about some of the roadway geometry. So we had just made some very general comments. We need a stormwater pollution prevention plan. And personally, I think that having worked on the developer side for a similar project like this, a large project in another municipality, I think the best way to approach this is to have some technical meetings outside of the planning board, meeting where, you lay out, you have a proposed layout for, the utilities, show all the utilities, we go over them, then you can proceed with more detailed work, such as, the profiles. I think that's probably the best way that this project, and the same thing, for Montage, because there's a lot of engineering-like details that probably a lot, the planning board members don't want to get, involved in certain things. But there are certain things that the planning board will want to get, involved in, such as lighting, if there's going to, be lighting out here. The other thing that we mentioned in our letter, and I don't remember if we talked about this during the environmental process, but I don't remember if we talked about sidewalks or not. And,
Don't recall it coming up.
so we brought it up in our letter. I would assume it would be similar, to Montage. It's a pretty big, development. I'm sure there'll be a lot of, children. So that's something that either the planning board can discuss tonight or perhaps at a later date, but I think that's one thing that should be, reviewed.
It's in the zoning for a cluster subdivision as well.
Pardon me?
It's in the zoning for a cluster subdivision, the provision of sidewalks. The planning board has some discretion about how that happens, but it's certainly recommended.
I mean, with this many, houses, I don't think we want people walking in the street.
Well, and I think we need to get to detail, like where bus stops would be and things like that too, because like you said, if there's children there walking, you want to make sure they're on sidewalks.
is this gonna be phased?
Yes.
Yes.
It will be, okay.
And that's the other thing, too. We would have to go look at, the phasing in more detail to make sure that in each phase, there's always an emergency access route, out of there for each individual phase in the event that, the preceding phase doesn't, develop. So my opinion is we should probably have an offline technical meeting just, to flush out some of the major issues so that you can, go to town on your, on your detailed work. That's my opinion.
Sounds like a great idea.
We concur.
Cool.
I just want to bring up that same philosophy for the improvements that are going to be suggested or proposed to the DOT for 52, in that, Montage has something on the table with DOT. This project's going to require something else, but just to make sure that those improvements work together, I think it'd be important that the DOT sees both of them.
Any other questions or comments for Mark? If not, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Foster Road Professional. Is there anyone here for
Yeah, there is, hold on.
Foster Road?
I saw. Oh, no, Roz, you're the next one, I'm sorry, no, they may not be here yet, sorry about that. There you go. I'm here on behalf of Al Capelli. His father-in-law passed away 3 days ago.
I'm sorry to
He's
hear that.
involved with the funeral and, the wakes and so on and so forth.
Our condolences.
So at the last meeting, the planning board had made some recommendations and some desire to see some minor changes. So that's what we have included in this lot of drawings and information. The first thing was that the handicap parking, which was in front of Building 2, was going to be moved to the south side of the property. They didn't want it in front because I think there was some, the handicap signs were being knocked over by the snow plows, et cetera. So the number of handicap spaces are still the same. They've just moved the location to the south side of the property. And of course, there's depressed curbing that goes with it. And it's, the number of spaces that we have, parking spaces are still the same. The second issue that you wanted us to discuss was to have a consultation with the fire department, with the fire trucks in the new parking area. They've recommended larger planting islands so that the trucks can flow more smoothly. So in order to do this, there were 2 spaces that were eliminated from the new parking lot. So now we had 14 spaces along the middle section and 10 close to the house. So now there'll be 12 spaces in the middle and 10 spaces close to the house. So we have 2 fewer spaces.
Still sufficient parking, though, for the buildings?
Yes, yes. There was an extra sheet added, 9-0, showing the flow of the new parking configuration. And the fire department seems to be okay with that. Al had recommended a construction entrance and an emergency access from the old Maselli driveway. And I think the DOT is okay with that. They are not, they haven't sent any notes or letters to confirm, but I think with the back and forth correspondence, I think they seem to be okay. They don't have any issues with that.
Just to let you know, I did speak with the DOT permit engineer that covers the area. She did indicate that they are okay with, they're not going to require a permit to have construction access on that residential driveway. They're okay with no permit for that, and they're okay with it being left as an emergency access point. And they're also, just because it's an existing condition, they're okay with the circular driveway. The only thing that they did request is that the residential driveway receive an asphalt apron of 30 feet on each side, because right now it's gravel basically up to the edge of the pavement, and they wanted to see an asphalt apron when the project was completed.
I think one of our other concerns, though, when this was presented in front of us, was that the fact that there was a residential dwelling and the parking would interfere with the emergency access. And we were very concerned about the fact that if the house utilized the parking where the emergency access was, there would be no access.
One of the comments we thought as a minimum is that maybe signage ought to be added to say that it's emergency access, no parking along that leg of the driveway, so that anyone that's using it for that residential use doesn't park in that area. They can still access through there, but they shouldn't be able to park there. We thought maybe signs could do that, especially since it's the same owner. They could enforce that, but that's, we did point that out last time. I think it's still, I think in an ideal world, you'd like to see those uses separated.
But enforcement would be by the owner?
Yeah, I mean, and again, just some, signage that indicated you couldn't park there.
Yeah.
I do think that's a problem.
Yeah.
The driveway is quite a large driveway. It's not as though it's restrictive or anything. So I think that,
I just feel as if the original, reason for it all is because there is really no firm control of it. And unfortunately, you find out when there's an emergency that there is a problem, and that's what I think we were really looking to avoid.
Will it be gated in any way? How is it gonna be designated as an emergency? Is it just gonna be open? Is it gonna have a gate? Will it have
there are no
something?
gates, there are no gates. It's just a circular driveway that
No, I think
they're
there's
proposing
a
it-
gate between the residential driveway and the commercial property.
There is.
Chain, I believe.
Yeah,
isn't it?
chain, right, not,
And I think the fire department has looked at it too, and I thought I saw a letter that it was okay, but.
And they were okay with the whole emergency
Well, I don't know,
situation?
I believe so. Yeah, and I don't know if that was just an Al's response letter, or there's been so much stuff, as you all know, coming in. So I don't remember if we got a letter from the Fire Advisory Board or not.
actually, I think the fire department did weigh in.
I
and
think
they
there
talked
was
to-
a
yes,
letter.
they definitely did talk to Al, because it was their idea to have a larger turnaround for the fire trucks when they came into that.
I think that's something else
Parking
that we talked about last time, was that they didn't have a way to get to the back side of the building, so that's what they did modify it, so that the fire apparatus can circle the property and the building.
One of the other questions that came up was, that's a residential driveway that's probably rated for 10, 15,000 pounds of weight,
Yeah.
and we're talking about a 50-plus thousand
Right.
pound fire truck with water, and is that gonna be modified to accommodate the trucks?
Well, it is a gravel driveway, and it's been there forever. It's nothing that we just installed.
No, I'm fully aware of that. I was just,
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the truck. We don't wanna lose one of our trucks going to the backside on a
I
residential
understand.
driveway. That's gravel. So that was one of the questions that was asked at the last meeting. If it's considered an emergency exit, is it gonna be paved and wide enough for the trucks for egress, in and out?
Okay.
I don't know if that was answered or not.
So I don't
Yeah,
have the answer. I can find out.
I mean, I would assume that if the fire department either went to the site or looked at the plans, they would be okay with it, but that's a good thing, to verify. We also asked that there be a note put on the map that if that driveway is damaged during construction with the heavy equipment going like in and out, that there should be a note on there that says that the driveway would be reconstructed
Okay.
if it was damaged. And while I'm here, similar to our prior comment, we'll need a drainage study, to prove that the dry wells that are proposed on the plan can handle the additional impervious area.
Okay.
So that's something that's still got to be provided.
And I think also if it is maintained as an emergency access, there's gonna have to be some provision in there that it be maintained in the winter months.
Yes.
100%.
Brendan, you had a lot of notes about the meeting. Do we have a memo for that yet, or is that coming?
Yeah, you have a memo.
Okay.
And then I think there was also an issue regarding expanding the septic system.
Yes, that was the last thing. So the Board of Health has been, and we've done some tests, some deep hole tests, and we're just waiting for them to come back to us to expand that septic system. But just as a side, I have to say this. The number of people working in that building, even though they've added an extra floor, are not increasing. The reason they've added that extra floor and that extra space is twofold. One is, on the first floor of that building, there were two separate reception areas for the patients. He's combined both of them so that it's just one integral area where people can sit a little bit spaced, with spaces in between. They don't want to be, everybody sitting on top of everybody else. And upstairs, the reason that space was created was that's administrative space. He has a space about that size in the other building, but he wants to separate the administration staff so that they have space and they don't feel threatened by COVID. So that is the only reason to do these two things. So, yes, we are adding to the septic system. We are adding, yes, but I don't know that there are no showers in that building. There are just some bathrooms. I think upstairs in that new space, they've added 3 bathrooms, but it's just a sink and a commode. So it's not as though we're adding extra anything. The lab that was downstairs has gone upstairs, so whatever they're using there, it's the same, and the staff is all the same. So we are adding to the septic system. There's not even an issue, but basically, we're waiting
Well,
for
you're
the water.
relocating the septic system also because it's in the parking area where you're going to expand.
Correct.
And you're gonna
Correct.
use that area to
To the
put
front
like
of the-
dry
yes.
wells, so I
Yes.
don't think it's as much a question of your, increasing, the use that much. It's just that you need, to move it.
Correct.
Because you need that room for.
Correct, for the
So it has to
parking
go
area.
to the health
Yeah, it has
department
to go there,
anyways.
yes. No, it is
So-
going to, we've had, the girl has come and looked at everything. We did the deep hole test.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for them to come back to us, that's all.
Have you submitted, or has Al had his
I think he has
engineers?
submitted, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, any,
Public hearing on this, or?
I think that was one of the questions we had for the board, was whether or not the changes were considered minor or major, but I think they are doing some relatively significant changes here, so probably should set up a public
Probably
hearing.
have a public hearing then.
well, what's the feeling of the rest of the board about a public hearing?
It sounds like it's significant enough that it should at least have a chance to get reviewed. I wouldn't expect a big response because, it's not gonna have a lot of impact on the neighbors, but should at least give them the opportunity to speak about it.
Didn't we approve the parking lot, though, this new lot, at the time of the last approval?
We approved I don't know that we actually approved the spaces there. We did say that there would likely to be an expansion of the lot in the future, so I think we just kind of showed an area that there would be potentially I think we land banked some of it, actually.
Yeah, I thought we actually had it
We
approved.
land banked. But I'm not sure if we actually showed the dimensions of the parking lot. I think we kind of just future parking. And I don't know if we had the emergency access connection. Certainly the elevator shaft is a new addition to the footprint, but, I mean, it's up to the board, whether or not you think it rises to the level of needing a public hearing.
Well, Lori, I think you raised a pretty interesting point. If we already talked about parking in that area, that is the biggest change, right?
I would say moving the septic is the biggest change, but that's needed for the new parking lot.
That's not, but the septic wouldn't be necessarily our
Right.
purview, right?
Right.
That's the Board of Health.
I don't know.
And I mean, we've
There's not really
approved
any
air
neighbors.
conditioning systems and things like that that have small additions on buildings as minor. Do we have the old plan? Can we just take a quick look and see?
I don't have it here with me, but we can get it downstairs. You wanna?
Okay.
Let me see if I can find it.
Tom, is this considered a major enough?
That's
that-
up to the board to decide if they feel it's.
So
I don't know, I
significant
feel like
have,
it's-
Anybody want to make a motion?
parking spots, here's the elevator, and then, like you said, there's the approval on the septic, so.
I would say that we should probably at least allow the neighbors to speak about it. They're probably not gonna be a whole lot of comments, in my opinion, but at least we offered the chance.
So we have a motion from Ed to hold a public hearing. Do I have a second?
sound that way.
I'm really on the fence, because I know we approved the use of the parking lot. We're just building it out now, so for,
I don't think that it's encroaching on many neighbors or anything like that. It looks like the majority of the space around it is green, and they own the house that's in front of it.
and I mean, we're
It's just
improving the
parking.
condition with the ADA spaces being now against the building versus having pedestrians have to cross the travel way.
If we have approval on the parking, why don't we see if we can confirm that first?
Yeah, Jack is
Make a
going
decision
down.
from there.
Jack is gonna,
Okay.
You know, because then that, if we've approved that, that's done. Now we're only looking at the other items. And
I
then
mean, we
that-
certainly anticipated that there was gonna be, I mean, things have changed a little bit from the original approval. The original approval was maybe the house was gonna disappear at one point and there would be parking everywhere. So there's been a few,
but we've got a lot of other sites
Modifications.
that have land bank parking, and if they came back to pave land, if this is land banked or approved that way,
I mean, I think the
it'd
original,
be unusual to change the layout slightly.
I think the original intent was the house was gonna go and potentially, and the whole thing was gonna be parking.
But that's not
Then this
happening
is a
now,
lesser
so,
impact
Right.
than what was
This
originally.
actually, the
less
house
of an
actually
impact.
hides the parking.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's less of an impact by it not going away,
Right.
so.
So for lack of a second on the motion, and because it seems that the consensus of the board is to
Jack is
not
just
at this time.
Pull the plan.
Let's
right?
Is Jackie
reserve-
pulling the plan now?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
gonna
Oh,
pull the
okay.
plan.
I
Sorry,
thought she
John.
just went outside to greet the additional people. Okay. Yeah. Can we do this? Can we adjourn this just for a short time? Go
Sure.
to the next item, and then can we call you back up
Sure.
as soon as we finish with the
Sure.
next item, and we'll
Sure.
complete
No
everything with you?
problem, yeah.
Thank you.
Very much. Tucker Trail Subdivision.
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is the Tucker Trail subdivision. This is a 16-acre parcel located at the intersection of Route 52 and 216. As you head out of town on 52, right when you get to 216, that is this angle point here. We may have some discussion about a roundabout and things like that, but that's the location, just to kind of get yourself set. There's a fairly large homestead parcel that sits on the corner, right? I think it used to be the Redbird Inn, talking to some old timers. That is not included as part of this application. This property actually goes around the perimeter of that property. So what's being proposed is a 6-lot subdivision. The back of the property abuts the county rail trail, and then just again for spatial, the other side of that is the golf course. There is a pond that comes onto the property on the northern side, and then there's a fairly sizable wetland delineated, which shows up on lots 1 and 2. Again,
I'm sorry,
16
where was
acre.
the pond? I'm sorry, I didn't catch where you said the pond.
So
Top.
here's the rail trail.
Okay,
There's a culvert opening that goes to a larger pond on the golf course, but this
Gotcha.
kind of sneaks out.
gotcha, okay,
That being said, there's also down in this area here, a significant federal wetland.
okay.
Both wetlands are not DEC regulated, they're federal. We're proposing, again, 6 homes. We've done this on other parcels relative to the access points. We've shared them. So lot 1 and 2 share an access coming off of 52, and then the other lots actually share combined accesses as well, so it minimizes those access points onto the state highway. We've been back and forth with the state highway department, and they're comfortable with these these proposed layout locations. While in septic, we performed a number of soil tests. The soil is optimal, very gravelly type stuff. So we're looking to move forward relative to a fairly simple 6-lot subdivision.
Like referencing that roundabout, how is that gonna impact the driveway connection on 52? Is that gonna be far enough away so that there's not gonna be an issue there? And
Yeah,
And before you answer, Brendan, I'd also like your input on the existing driveway that goes into the property that's not part of this, which could also get sucked up into that roundabout.
All right, so we just got those preliminary roundabout drawings yesterday, so I've only had a chance to take a cursory look at that. I do know that the driveway on what Mike is calling the homestead parcel is going to require a relocation for the roundabout. I'm not sure of the driveway, the combined driveway that would come out on 52, whether that would fall in a location where access might be restricted, where it might only be able to be a right out, but we'd have to look at that closer. So there's some potential that could be impacted. So I think that's something that has to be looked at. I mean, the DOT is probably going to be looking at all this in similar timeframes.
yeah, so we've had the DOT out there. In fact, Cassandra today, assuming that obviously that the board is okay with this, we did have some discussions relative to the roundabout. As it relates to this job, it doesn't affect it. In fact, it needs to be an improvement. That access, that roundabout is probably, there's two things. One is if the roundabout never happens, there's gonna be a realignment at some point, so that there's a two intersection, right? That's a good thing for this subdivision. It's a good thing for this curb cut, because again, it increases that location where that intersection occurs. Same thing with the roundabout. Slows down the traffic. This is a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. We've done our site distance calculations. So in terms of dealing with DOT, we have a conceptual letter of approval on these locations. So in terms of impact, I think we're okay. It was something we discussed, but any improvement to that intersection is gonna be a good thing for this.
And these are just shared drive access, not shared driveways, all of them?
Just those, yeah, it kind of works out because it's 6-slot split, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So Mike, how does that anticipate to work? I mean, they would just stay on their side of the driveway? So it'd be like a 12-foot driveway that they would stay on their side, they wouldn't cross over to go to the other side to exit the driveway?
The way it works is working with another project we're working on as the county. The first one in the gate's got to provide the entrance. So if you've got lot 1 and 2, lot 1 wants to get built first, they're the ones gonna apply for the permit, they're the ones that are gonna get the access permit. In terms of dimensions and size of the access, it's only 2 lots, it's not a, 5 lots coming off a private driveway, so dimensionally, it's no different than would be, a single-family residential entrance, so that's the kind of way we've been doing it.
I mean, is there a point where it
Like a
merges
shared
together
apron,
and it's
right?
acting as
Yeah.
one driveway? Or are they like literally exiting and entering on their own driveway? I mean, I guess that's my point. Is there a detail for that? Is there something to?
We can provide more detail on that, but what it is, it's a common point of access.
But is the apron gonna be double wide of the
Yes.
driveway or single?
No, it's
Like,
gonna
is there one car passage in through the apron, or that's it, or double?
I mean, we show it a little wider, just to allow for the purposes of somebody coming in and someone coming out. But, I guess effectively it would be a little wider, but this is what they've asked for, so this is what we'll provide. If DOT has more of a specification to show a little wider, then that's what we can do. But we have just single-point access points as we would for a single-family driveway.
But similar to other residential driveways, we're not trying to make that a two-way, like where 2 cars would be passing, one entering, one exiting at the same time. One car at a time, right?
Presumption is somebody's gonna see that car and they're gonna hold off till that car
So it's not
goes.
gonna be like a 24-foot apron and,
Right.
you know,
That's what was hard to tell. I wasn't sure of that.
Well, that's, if you measure it, that's not what we're showing. It's pretty standard in terms of its width.
If you do have that conceptual approval from DOT, if you could forward that
Yep.
to the board and to myself.
Okay.
and any Any variances or anything like that? Everything ESL calculation with the wetlands
We
is,
went ahead and did all our ESL calculations. There's a flag lot on here, which is lot 3 in the back. So we had to deduct the whole portion of the flag. That's actually the largest lot we have on here, which is almost 8.5 acres. So there's plenty of room, but all that information's been calculated and placed on a plan. We're not looking for any variances.
Does the property line of the one closest to where the rail trail is along 216, does that actually meet there, or there's some land left over?
So these, if you can look at the rail trail and you come in with 216th, they start to form a triangle.
Yes,
There is a very old house
yes, that's in the process of getting destroyed,
that is in
yes.
the process of getting demoed.
Right,
That is the next property down. That is not included as part of this project.
okay.
Okay. Other questions? Pete?
Mr. Chairman, we had a couple things. Again, the plans are, this is the first time that, we're seeing them, so, there's more information that needs to be shown, bearings and distances on the lots, grading, erosion, sediment control. But the other thing, Mike, if you could just take a look at the limits of disturbances, it seemed like some of the lots are kind of tight in the back, and there's really not too much room if people want to have pools or other amenities in the back. So maybe on your next submission, just take a look at it and see if it's reasonable.
Yeah, we can do, I saw that. Usually the septic sometimes are in the back, so it just so happens you have to provide a big backyard, 'cause that's where the septics are going. But in this case, on some of these lots, it's different, so we'll buffer that out a little bit.
Just, yeah, just look at it for your next submission.
Yeah, makes sense.
Any other questions, any comments?
Just also that, the board should declare their intent to be lead agency so we can circulate.
Could I have a motion to declare the board lead agency?
So moved.
second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
So circulation-wise, I'll work with Jackie and you.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
For the public, we will be starting the public hearings shortly. We just have one tiny matter to finish up with Foster Road if we can. Should take us just a few minutes. She's still with us? Did she stay?
Plus, we have Hopeful Easy Storage, too.
Hopefully use the
We
storage.
have one more after.
Do we want to go ahead and do easy storage before? Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't matter to me.
What was the answer?
Yeah.
It should be pretty easy to get.
So there is no, we didn't, there was no, it was never shown, because really the house, and the original, or in 2015, the house was then reintroduced as staying on the site. So, and there was a yard, and I remember there was a pool that got filled in, and that was all gonna remain, so ultimately, I think that was the original iteration, might have assumed parking was gonna be all over the place, but then the house came back into the picture, and in 2015, 2016, we approved, with the house staying there, basically.
Did we approve the blacktop, the parking? Just the
Not,
house?
just the house, and then there was a yard and a pool behind it for a while, and then there was parking beyond that was approved, but there was still a house and then a yard, so the parking that's going in the middle is.
Where the yard was.
So
Okay.
are we concluding that it is a major change?
Well, I mean, I don't know if that
clear.
necessarily determines whether that's a major change or not, it's just information for you. I mean,
Our record did reflect, though, that we discussed that would eventually be parking.
yeah, I think there was always some thought that it could be parking. I remember that discussion, yeah.
We're not adding a building, we're not.
And Board of Health is
Use.
approving the septic, correct?
Yes,
So we
septic.
have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, did you have you wanted to go through, we'll do Hopewell Easy Storage. Sorry to the public, we'll just take a few more minutes here with Hopewell Easy Storage, which is the next item on the agenda, and then we'll get to the public hearing.
Wait, but what's the
We have to
decision on
get
Foster
done
Road?
with Foster first.
All right,
Have we finished with that? Yeah.
so we had a motion to hold a public hearing for Foster Road. Is there a second?
Should we bring her forward?
I'm not sure she's still here.
She is.
Oh, I'm
She's
sorry.
right here.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Why don't you take the podium just for a moment, Michael, if you would give that over? And is there a second?
If there's no second.
On that
we're
motion.
not doing it.
There being no second, I think we are all, or most of us are pretty much in agreement that this is not so significant as to require a public hearing, so we'll just move forward on that basis. So you still have several things that you're working on, and we'll look forward to seeing
I
you.
have a list, I made the list today, and I will give them to Al. And then we will come back with, maybe, hopefully next month with the rest. So, yeah, if it's possible.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Yes. Sorry about the confusion, Michael.
That's okay.
Hopewell Easy Storage Expansion.
Okay, good evening again. So the application that's before you on this project is an expansion of Hopewell Easy Storage. Everybody knows where Hopewell Easy is, right in town. What's being, this project got started about 20-plus years ago, when it first installed the original, the existing storage units. Came back to the board a few times, made changes and so forth. This effectively, I would say, represents the final application for this property. What I wanted to do, because there's a lot of action, there's a lot of things going on, is I kind of made a quick shaded drawing, which is up there, to kind of differentiate the few things that are going on here. So, top left is the existing office. That property was actually acquired as part of the original subdivision to allow for a separate access than coming in off of what's called the Williams access point. That's not the greatest access point, as we all know. So the units which represent self-storage is the property that I guess sits behind the office, which is that, right? The people that come in for self-storage come in through the office location. There's a gate. They put in their PIN code, and then that area is completely fenced, all right? So that's how people get in and out of that location. The next spot down is a large, basically a large building that encloses our contractors, okay? And that's the way it's always been. We have floor company and a number of other folks in there, auto repair, blah, blah, blah. And then let's call it part 3 is the outdoor storage or covered storage in the back, RVs, boats, things such as that. Access to the 2 rear locations come in through that Williams access point, okay? So if anyone has noticed, well, you'll see at the large building, which is the large red location there in the middle, just to the north of that is where we're proposing new self-storage buildings. Those will supplement and be a part of the self-storage that I mentioned. It's behind the office. That area would be fenced off. That was being leased to Conti for a short period of time. They're the contractors that were involved with putting in the water line for the Superfund site on the north side of town. They are not there anymore. That project, I believe, is effectively done, other than some small tinkering around. That is the area where, right now, that is a big grass field. So the idea is to put in 2 self-storage buildings, associated paving, drainage, so forth. The fencing from the existing self-storage will actually be modified to come down and be part of the overall self-storage enclosed space. So that will, all of that traffic that would come out of that would be driven to the existing entrance where the office is, okay? We are proposing on realigning or installing a roads on the south or the north end of the proposed building. So you would come in, the entrance coming in off of 82, work your way down, past the new self-storage, take a left, and there would be a roadway around that complete perimeter of that building. It's pretty much halfway there already. But it's to allow for circulation of truck traffic. We get larger vehicles there and things such as that. So that effectively is the application. I did get some comment letters and understood there's some details that need to be provided relative to bollards and lighting and things such as that. But at the end of the day, I think it's very important to emphasize, especially with DOT looking at doing something with that bridge. Apparently that bridge out in front of Williams is at a point of disrepair, and they are looking at options relative to at grade and tying with the rail trail and things such as that. But point is none of that traffic that's being generated by these new buildings will be pushed out of that existing entrance. So we don't anticipate any modification to that existing entrance at Williams. Conti was there before and it was using that entrance. You could theoretically say there's going to be a reduction. Conti didn't generate much vehicles. So that is effectively the proposition.
Will the self-storage facilities be similar in height and design as the ones in front?
Yeah, the town of East Fishkill has been pretty clear about not liking metal buildings. Okay, so the outside of these existing buildings, it's called a Steny panel, which is very thick. So the outside of these proposed buildings will complement the existing buildings that are there aesthetically.
It's gonna be climate-controlled storage, or just,
You know,
Like
the
the garage
reason,
door style, like roll-up doors, or are they?
yeah, we provided some elevations, but, you know, again, it's self-storage, so there's nothing hugely elaborate, but they will be very similar, exactly as what we have out there now. Roll-up doors, no heat, no cool. There is the reason we're before this board, there is a significant demand for this. This operation runs at about 98%, and turns people away all the time, so.
I know it's real bad now. My son tried to get a unit, and is told there's a year wait, so it's definitely,
I mean,
definitely big business right
Put them
now.
on lists and things like that, but there is a strong demand for self-storage. And again, being located in the center of town, it's pretty convenient to everybody, so. But I think at the end of the day, too, is based upon the different uses that are occurring at the site, this is probably gonna be the last hurrah, so.
I just have a question, Mike, about this segment of roadway right here, see where the cursor is that existing?
That is existing, yes.
Okay, and then that'll be closed off, it'll be cut off, because it'll be, this area here will be fenced like this?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so then anyone coming to this building would have to come in this way and go around, is that like that?
As they currently do, yeah.
Okay. And then, I know that you have shown one light pole here. Was that gonna be, I know maybe you haven't fleshed out the details fully, but I thought on the plan there was one new light pole somewhere in here, right?
Yeah, it may be covered up by Williams and Service, but we're actually proposing two,
Okay,
down at the bottom location there for lighting and also cameras for security.
okay. So I'll just need a little bit more detail about what like how tall they will be and the fixtures
Yeah, again.
and photometrics.
Not so long ago, all of the lighting was changed out for the purpose LED, okay? So, you know, we're gonna try and complement that, but I'll get you lighting
Okay.
diagrams and all that good stuff.
And as far as the planning boards, we have to refer him to the ARC and then also declare intent to be lead agency, okay?
So, may I have a motion declaring our intent to be lead agency?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And now a motion to refer the applicant to the ARC.
So- Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I just had one quick thing.
yes.
Michelle, when we were talking today, I thought that Christian was going to put in here about a coverage issue potentially.
Yeah,
Could you just
it's in our memos, I think it's in both memos that he
Okay.
received today. There's just, it's very close to meeting the required lot coverage of 75%, so we just want to make sure, because I think Christian had a little bit of trouble calculating based on he wasn't
Yeah.
exactly sure what was existing and what was proposed. So, I think he's gonna clarify that with you and then calculate.
Yeah, and that's what, I think that's the reason why he asked for an existing condition survey, so we could,
Yeah, what I can do too is at the bottom of the large building, that area is currently paved. We would love to have more parking spaces there, but we're cognizant of the issue regarding the coverage, so we're showing that as kind of green space and so forth, so, we'll figure it out. But the reason we're doing that is so that we can still meet that requirement, so we're cognizant of it.
okay.
All right?
We haven't had an opportunity to review it and provide a comment memo yet, but I think the only thing I would bring up is just to make sure that there's adequate access for fire apparatus and circulation. So might need to be some gates or something to get things to circulate around there.
Yeah, we can do the turnarounds and the radiuses. We are proposing gates as part of this, which we can get into in heavier detail as this moves on, so, snow removal, stuff like that. All right?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, now, for public hearings. Could I have a motion to open the public hearing for Montage Subdivision?
So moved. Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Montage Subdivision,
John, just give me 1 second, I'm just gonna let the people come in, there's a few people outside.
okay. One moment while we bring the rest of the audience.
Do you wish to read the public notice? Do you wish to read the public notice aloud? It's up to you.
They don't do it.
They don't?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good evening.
My name is Richard O'Rourke. I'm a principal member of the law firm of Keenan Bean. We are serving as the attorneys for Charbel with respect to this application. Here tonight, we have Mr. Thomas Troy, who's a native of East Fishkill and a graduate of your high school. He's president of Charbel, along with Mark Canuli, who's the senior vice president for development. He is here as well. We also have with us this evening Peter Rosillo, who is our professional engineer, our traffic engineer, who is with Mazer Engineering, which is now part of Collier's Engineering, and previously was Collier's Engineering when Mr. Collins was unfortunately passed away recently. And also we have our engineering consultants from Day Stokosa, Mark Day, and of course Amy Bomadiri. Before we begin, at the outset, there is a concern that's been voiced in terms of the adequacy of the sign that was on the property, which of course was of a requirement as part of the public notice. The lettering seemed to be very small, and for the avoidance of doubt, and so that there's no concerns with respect to the adequacy, respectfully, what we would ask is that we have the public hearing open tonight. We proceed. We are going to post a much larger sign with sufficient lettering, which we think would be, would avoid
Might want to
any
change it,
doubt with
might want to
whatsoever
change
with respect.
the way that it's orientated too, because.
The orientation?
Yeah, the orientation doesn't come out, you don't see it until you're almost right on it, and it's like, what was that?
Well, we certainly want to, we don't want to have any issues with that, so our
Haven't we done
sign
it
makers will make sure that we get it, do
for
it.
projects like this? It's almost a V-shaped sign, so you can see it traveling from either direction.
That's fine. And we want to make sure it's done properly, so duly noted, and we'll make sure that the sign is improved. Okay. Tonight, what we thought as part of the public hearing and for the public presentation, Mr. Canuli will provide an overview of the application and explain where we are in terms of the environmental review process. As many of the board members know, this application has been around for some time. It has been the subject of a positive declaration, preparation of a draft environmental impact statement, final environmental impact statement, supplemental final environmental impact statement, adoption of a finding statement, and after that very lengthy environmental review through the cluster subdivision, certain developments have occurred which I think inure to the benefit of the town and to the community. For example, part of that is that on our property, we have two very high-quality, high-yielding wells that we intend to donate and dedicate to the town to augment the water supply that is for the community. In addition to that, I have written a letter to the town board requesting that we begin the formation of a sewer district, which would, of course, encompass not only our property, but also that corridor with Summit Woods. So we've made some progress with that. And in addition to that, and finally, this evening, Mr. Rosillo can present to the board and explain the traffic improvement that is so vitally necessary for the intersection of New York State routes 216 and 52. So with that, what I'd like to do is have Mr. Cannulli make a brief presentation, and then, of course, Mr. Rosillo can talk about the traffic improvements and open it up for public comment. That, with your permission.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff. Good to see you again. You may recall I was here last month because I enjoy the trip up here, up the Taconic Parkway, and I get to visit with Mr. Troy's mother, who lives not too far away in Fishkill. But it would help, and Mr. O'Rourke did a really good job. Tonight, we're opening the hearing to the public to hear public comment. So we intend to provide a little more detail than we have the last few times I was up here regarding our layout, our subdivision, the secret process, how we got to where we are, how certain improvements were made to the project, and where we are today. So what I'd like to start with, we also have our traffic consultant here, and Mr. Day and Amy with Mr. Day's firm to run through any technical items that you may have questions with. Quick history for the record, we started this process in 2005 when the planning board made a positive deck and took lead agency over the process. At that time, we were proposing a project that looked a lot different than what you see here. There was about 278 units. It was an active adult, non-active adult community with some commercial out by the intersection. It required that we hold a joint public hearing with the planning board and town board, and we did that back in 2007. And later that year, the town board decided they didn't want to go in that direction, and they denied the zoning. So at that time, in 2007, we decided to proceed with an as-of-right application. We used your R1 standards to design, at the time it was 130 plus lots. That's really just the starting point, and then you proceed with SECRA and you go through all the various environmental impacts that we had to deal with, and you get to an actual number at some point. We worked through that process and held public hearings in June and July of 2011, submitted several draft FEISs through, looks like 2013 to 2017, believe it or not. And we had a second round of public hearings and closed and finalized our FEIS in June of 2017. At that point, we took a step back, looked at where we were, and started the process with drafting the finding statement. A few issues arose at the time with regard to some of the agencies we were dealing with, the DEC, the DOT, all those. We've been in contact with them. Our website has been up and running since the beginning of this process. All of our correspondence have been posted to the website. So when you're looking for information, and I've been asked several times by staff to always provide our correspondence, I tried over the course of those years to update the website so that there is a good standing history of our paper trail, and those documents and correspondences are on there. Moving forward, Mr. Fitzgerald asked that all of our dealings with DOT, he gets a copy of. I've started that process as well. Same with Mr. Sotero and Ms. Robbins. So we're committing that we will continue to keep you informed. That gets us to where we are. We resolved those issues, and then it wasn't until late November 2019 that the finding statement was was issued. So from that time until, I'd say, April, when we submitted our plans, we were working on the subdivision, the details of the layout, the cross sections, the stormwater SWIP, and all of those details. The project you see before you tonight is a 122-lot cluster subdivision. The plan on the board there is a 385-acre parcel on the south side of Route 52, near the intersection of 216. You can see that in the drawing. There's a traffic circle shown in the upper left-hand corner. That's the intersection. The project includes a subdivision that will leave a 1-acre existing lot out near that intersection with the cellar, as well as a 44-acre parcel along Route 52 that will also remain with the cellar. That leaves around a 341-acre parcel that will be developed. Ms. Robbins, maybe you can point to the project is served with a main spine road that will connect the traffic circle at the north all the way through to the adjacent project, Summon Woods. That's a master plan road, or at the time it was considered a master plan road to provide additional circulation through the town out to 52 through the two subdivisions. There are 3 pockets of development that respect the existing wetlands. The first pocket is 6 homes up on the left-hand side there. That's after the first crossing. That's an existing farm road crossing. We're working with the DEC to finalize those permits. The second crossing gets you into the central portion of the application. Go back 1 pod. Yeah, right there. There, north of where the cursor is the well parcel. There are 2 high-producing 8-inch diameter wells that were talked about earlier. In fact, they were mentioned with the Summit Woods application. We're working with our engineers to do further studies to make sure that they meet the current water quality standards. But they are high-producing wells. There will be, I think they pump at 150 gallons per minute. All those details are in the documents. The engineers know more about that than I do. They're currently looking at what additional improvements need to be made so that those 2 wells can serve our 122 lots, our neighbor's property, and be connected to your town water system as a secondary source of water in the event of a problem at Four Corners. That's being designed and engineered by Colliers Engineering, and we're working with our neighbor on having that engineering start. Actually started last week. Moving further into the project, there's 1 more crossing, and that's the last pot of development. You'll see the dark green, I'm colorblind, so I'm gonna have a hard time explaining. Aqua bluish color, that's the wetland. The adjacent, what looks like, what color is it? Mustard color is the 50, or is that 150-foot wide? Where's Amy? Yes. Adjacent area? Okay. Those are the environmentally sensitive areas. This plan fully respects those areas, and none of our individual private lots encroach into those areas. That was a big improvement and something that was brought up during, as you may recall, some of you may and some of you may not, during the course of the DEIS and FEIS. One of the improvements to the plan and layout was to cluster and do a true cluster design. There are some internal wetlands, open spaces inside and around those. Yeah, those areas there are meant to be just open, passive spaces, meadow grass, those kind of things. And if they're in areas that are adjacent to private lots, they would likely be owned, well, they will be owned and maintained by a Montage at East Fishkill Homeowners Association. I summarized and went over how we got to the cluster. There was a as-of-right conventional layout. That was all dealt with. All those details and discussions are posted on the website if you want to know how. But that was what the town planning board decided was the preferred alternative, and that's what you voted on, and that's in the finding statement, and that's why we're proceeding in this fashion. There were a few key aspects in addition to that came up during SECRA that we should mention in addition to the cluster design. These lots range in size from 80 feet wide to 120 feet deep to 90 feet wide to 110 feet deep. They're roughly a quarter acre in size. They can accommodate a fairly modest size home. We're proposing a 2,400 square foot to 3,300 square foot home, 3 and 4 bedroom mix. We're using we've always proposed a traditional architectural style. Those details will be further developed, but again, those are in and posted on the website. They haven't changed since we've shown you those over the last few years. One of the other major improvements and things we talked about was the public water and sewer system. We had, with this project, up out near Route 52 and on the adjacent project, there were 2 locations for a regional wastewater treatment plant. We ended up with DEC deciding that the best location was on Summit Woods, but as you all know, the town decided, and we proceeded in this fashion to utilize a public water and sewer system, and now we're working with Mr. Bryant. We've hired a engineer to design a system. We'll be sharing information with the town and proceeding to develop, that system in the forthcoming months. That design will also include connecting the water system and some of the additional analysis we need to prove that will work in the end. And one of the other things that was discussed earlier with the discussion item with the Summit Woods was the connection between the 2 sites, and the whole notion of a long cul-de-sac. If you recall, during the FEIS, we're required to work with our neighbor, Mr. Guerin, and Summit Woods in establishing a way to connect the 2 properties in the event that one project went before the other. We currently have an easement and an understanding and a developer's agreement with our neighbor that does a few things. It provides for interconnections of infrastructure, water and sewer, interconnections of traffic, and an actual access easement, which would allow you, if one project went before the other, to go all the way through the other and get out to Route 52. That alignment and the temporary road that could be built, that detail is also shown in the D or the FEIS, I think. And that's, again, something that's posted, but we can provide more details. Let me just, I don't want to jump too far ahead here. All right, regarding the infrastructure, we talked about our sewer. We talked about the routing of the sewer during this process. The town engineer has provided direction that this project and the Summit Woods project would be connected to the Four Corners sewer system. That alignment would exit our project at that traffic circle, head north on 216 up Phillips Road, bore under the Fishkill Creek. We're also evaluating other means to get across the creek and eventually connect to Four Corners. The Summit Woods property would exit their driveway, their main driveway, travel up 52 to the other connection to 216, and where 216 converges before it turns north, that's where the 2 systems would connect. So there would be a way to phase the project and start one before the other.
So you're gonna route that through Stormville on Old 52 then to get
Make
to
sure I got the right
216?
roadway. Yes, that's the road. I'm familiar with that, and then all the way up to Phillips Road. Public water, same alignment for the most part. We'll connect our projects together through a water system that will pump from our wells to a water treatment system to a location of a tank that will pressurize the system. We're evaluating where that was, Mr. Day. There he is. Where that tank will be located. At one point, it was located on the Summit Woods property. It currently is still shown in that location, but we're also trying to see where we might need to equalize that system. There may be, I don't know if there's two tanks or not, but we're looking at that detail. Again, that water system will exit either one or the other and follow pretty much a redundant alignment of the sanitary up to the Four Corners site and provide that interconnection for water. Mr. Bryant, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was that was what was discussed at the last meeting? Okay. I'm not going to get into the details of the well. I'm speaking way above I don't know anything about the bedrock wells. Well, I know that they've been there since 2005. They're still there today. We will confirm with the engineers that the new water quality standards are met with the new New York DEC. Regarding traffic, we have our traffic engineer here, Mr. Rosillo, who's by far one of the best respected traffic engineers probably in the industry. His firm has been doing this for a long time. If you want to get into the details of the conceptual design we have, and in fact, it's a permit application before DOT. We just submitted those details to the town, and I just want to make sure I correct the record as to why. In early 2021, we started with a concept plan for a signalized intersection, or a circle. And we deferred to the DOT to make a decision as to what they preferred as the preferred design. And it was their jurisdiction to pick one or the other. In, I believe, April, they chose to proceed with a traffic circle, so we conceptually designed that. We always had pretty much a straight alignment with a T intersection, a four-way intersection, which would have been a signal. But the traffic signal required a little more real estate, all of which we have under contract. The real estate we need for the right-of-way is either owned by our seller, most of it's owned by our seller, and we have a sales contract to purchase that. Okay, yeah, if you need it, but I mean, there is a slide if it's necessary. And Mr. Rosillo can go through it with you. We're in the process we just resubmitted to the DOT to generate their real comments now. They'll talk about the width, if it can handle the speeds that Mr. Fitzgerald mentioned in his memo. All of those things will be looked at. In fact, we just got a memo today that we looked at earlier. Appreciate that. We're going to be prepared to respond to that before we come back before you and continue, with the hearing process. Last couple items that I can mention, and then I'm going to have to defer to the real professionals. The project is proposed to be constructed in those three phases we talked about earlier. Most likely, we'll come into the project, put in the infrastructure that's needed, the wells and the sewer connections, and then start probably with a sales activity out on Route 52 and 216, where we might have a sales trailer. Further in, we would have a buffered, construction staging area, and then we would start grading the project and start working on the individual lots as we, proceeded with the project. And depending on, market demand, when this project commences, we see this project taking anywhere from 5 to 6 years, again, depending on the demand for these types of houses, which I understand is really high these days.
So are you gonna have to build all of your crossings?
There's crossings,
to that?
what would
There's
have to
3 of
happen,
them there.
I'm sorry, Mr. Maishi, what would have to happen is that main spine road would have to go in, all the infrastructure that would be needed to support the first phase, the connection to the adjacent property and the emergency access out to 52. If that was the first phase, that would likely be what would be constructed, and then those additional phases of development could come in. All the stormwater that's needed to support each phase would have to go in first.
Just based on the conversation earlier about the length of the cul-de-sac, if you don't have the crossings done, there's really no other way.
No, they would have to
down
go
there.
in, I agree, yeah.
Okay.
And Ms. Robbins, you can show where that connects, right? I guess you can all see. It was talked about earlier where the road connects to the adjacent property.
Yes.
All the way to the right hand, you can see
Yep.
that there. And that lot on the other property, the neighbor's property is that right of way is being reserved.
Right.
And lastly, we intend to create a montage at East Fishkill Homeowners Association to maintain our basins. The roads would be dedicated to the town. They would be designed to the town standards. The large open spaces, the two large open spaces on the north and south end would be preserved through conservation easements. And we're working with North American Land Trust. We talked about that during our secret process. They would likely be the easement holder. They're very interested in owning or holding these easements and being the shepherd of these two environmentally sensitive areas. And now, removing the discharge point, there's no more discharge to the wetland from the wastewater treatment plant, which is another mitigation method, so. All right, so at this point, I think I'd like to turn it back over to the planning board first. We have our professionals here, and Mr. O'Rourke, unless we missed something on the overview.
If I may, just one very quick comment. For the purpose of the public as well as the planning board, would you like to have Mr. Rosillo discuss what the aspects are of the traffic circle, or where we are? We've answered all of the comments that have been raised by DOT, so we're fairly along in the process, but he's here and available.
I have a question for the developer. As far as the plan, does it include sidewalk and streetlights as we spoke of the
That's a
other?
good point. I should have mentioned that, and I apologize.
That's okay.
During the process, we talked about this site having potential for school kids and being served by school buses. We worked with Wappinger School District at the time, but bus locations weren't identified. We'd like to take the opportunity to reach out to them again, look at where a bus location and bus stop might be located, and come up with a reasonable location for sidewalks that would connect good portions of the development to those areas. I wouldn't say that we would need them on both sides of the road. These are going to end up being owned by the homeowners association, but they will serve a good purpose. They will need to have cross-access on the sidewalk themselves, but they should be located in good locations that, do what they need to do, and that's get kids safely to a school bus or, the mailman around and all that kind of thing.
And streetlights?
Lighting, I was going to get to that next. Lighting is something that we typically do at the intersections for sure. We're working on those details now. We would likely light up the intersections. The bridge crossings typically need some lighting as well. We'll work with your engineer and the town planner on that after we get through. But I know light pollution is also something we want to be sensitive of, so we're weighing both sides. But both of those things are in the process of being designed and worked on.
Okay.
Does your construction phasing change if Summit goes first?
If Summit Woods goes before our project, there would be a phasing plan for Summit Woods that would show the infrastructure that they would have the right to build on our property through a access agreement, construction easement agreement. We would still likely connect, point A and point B first, the same way I talked about earlier, but there would be a different way of connecting them out to Route 50, similar to what I talked about earlier with what we would do, it would be in the reverse.
But would any of it impede each other? Like if Summit Woods weren't able to, come to the
We're working
table?
on a design that would be independent of each other, so that one project could proceed. That's a big concern between both of us. And that's being worked on right now. We're talking about how we phase the infrastructure.
Well, even like just through that one easement connection there. So if that other development didn't exist, then what would happen with that access?
They would only, at that point, they would need to get water to the property first, right? I'm not sure I understand the whole comment on the cul-de-sac. I guess it's that last stretch of homes past the connection between the two projects. So without that, then that cul-de-sac may be too long. They have the right through a shared access, emergency access agreement to provide a road that connects all the way out if they were to proceed. We would have certain things that we would want to do while that disturbance was occurring that would serve our project as well, so we would also have to be ready to proceed. We're moving pretty far along on the engineering, so we'll be able to look at those details and how, one can go before the other. But there's a minimum of infrastructure that has to go in if one proceeds before the other. Some of those pipes will have to go in the ground before they're needed, may need to go in.
As part of this project, and the same thing, with Summit, as we, had talked about, there needs to be very detailed phasing plans for both projects in the event to try to cover as much as we can, so that there's no dead ends, like anywheres in each like phase for both, projects. That's gonna take some work, but that all has to be figured out for both projects and be
So
part
it
of
would
the.
kind of come in unison though,
Yeah.
because this is really a
It has to be.
connected project.
Yes, correct. And, the phasing, again, each particular phase has to have, the work that's going to be done in any one like phase, building like Bridge A, building Bridge B, so those are all like details that are going to have to come. And that's why I suggested before, similar to, the Summit Woods, that, we have a technical meeting to start to flush out some of these things on a conceptual level, so that both projects can proceed with their detailed plans. So we should have an understanding amongst, the town officials and the planning board as to basic things, such as, the phasing plan. Outline it so that then they can go do their detailed work.
And it's almost like they'd have to come together to get, completed together in order for it to, and also permitted together.
Yeah, it's
Almost,
complicated.
almost like phase one is infrastructure, and then phase two is one development, phase three another development, but phase one being the infrastructure for both. And they have to work together to get that done.
We've just, can I, for the record here, we have been working together pretty
Yeah.
closely. Our engineer is the same firm as theirs. We know much about their alignment with their sewer and how they connect to ours, and they know that with us. We will, as was just asked and requested, provide a very detailed phasing plan, construction plan, with how one project could proceed before the other, what infrastructure would have to be put in the ground, what easements would have to be established. Excuse me, we're working with Collier's engineers as well as our surveyor and our preparing our final plat. All those easements and locations, that all has to be vetted out too. Those are the details, no pun intended, we're digging up now. There's gonna be, drainage areas that have to, when you strip these sites, certain stormwater improvements have to go in before you can touch anything else. All of that has to be shown, and for the most part, we've shown that preliminarily. Mr. Sotaro has provided back in May some comments for us to consider. We've done that, but we need to take those comments, this meeting, any public comments we get, comments from the board, to the next level, put those details on the plan and be ready to come back before you. We'll meet, as was suggested, on the side with the professionals, and keep that process moving in the right direction.
But not that I would like to even discuss it, but if there would be some type of failure on either side's ability to complete, would there be bonding put in place?
Of
If
course,
one-
yeah.
That's what I'm
New
saying.
York state law provides that when
Yeah.
you have a large
Yes.
subdivision, you
Can't go
can
without.
phase it. And all the
Yes.
elements necessary to support are all laid out. There's a performance bond required for
Okay.
those items, so before one C of O can be granted.
Yes.
To any home, there's a bond that's posted that governs, that would allow, if they fail to do it, the improvement, any public improvement, the completion of it,
We
at
can
their
call
bond
it.
cost. Yes.
Okay,
So all
because I
that-
just would hate to see it fall back on the
Correct.
public, yeah, okay.
I think as we go through the process, we're gonna get into more of those details. I think what the public hearing opening at this time is for is, obviously, we don't know what comments the public may have
Yes.
about it, and how that has to be adjusted in the plan, et cetera. So it's the very beginning of it, but before you get to any point of closing the public hearing or granting approval, those kinds of details will be before you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Could we have just a short presentation by your traffic consultant on the circle?
My name's Pete Rosillo. I'm with Collier's Engineering and Design. This process started, the design process started initially with...
Excuse me for a second, I'm sorry. Is there a,
Can you put up the other one for the public?
yeah, is there an electronic
somehow?
version? Do I
Yes.
have? Is it on the desk? Okay.
There
I
it is.
think we
Yes.
got it. Yep,
Thank-
perfect.
yes.
Thank you.
This was, it initially started with the development of a separate left turn lane and a signalized intersection was one of the alternates that was presented to the state. The other was the roundabout. And it's been an iterative process. This is really the third time through. This last submission that we just made is the third submission of the roundabout to the state. The first included a slip ramp coming down from 116 to head westbound on 52. They, out of hand, said, no, we don't want that. The whole intent of this is to slow traffic down. So that was eliminated, and we've adjusted the size of the roundabout, was also modified. This roundabout can handle a WB 67 tractor trailer. If the need arises, it can do that. What they did in this last iteration, they've increased the apron portion that's around the inner part of the roundabout, and they've also included some striping, which I think is on this plan, that sort of tightens up the intersection for pedestrian traffic, but still allows the heavy vehicles to negotiate through the roundabout. They also modified some of the splitter ramps. Those are the ramps on each of the approaches to the roundabout. There's certain minimums that they're looking to see. I might mention that the process, it's taken a while because they state, actually, the regional office here in Poughkeepsie actually sent it up to Albany, the design, for main office approval before they wanted to go forward with it. And that took probably over 3 months to get main office approval. This is something that the state is doing in every chance that they possibly can, where there's right-of-way available. In this case, there is going to be dedication to the state. The lower portion where the main entrance to the property is, that trapezoidal piece will be dedicated to the state. And there's a piece on the upper right there that also is being dedicated to the department. This will, in terms of capacity, it works better than if it were a signalized intersection. Primarily because you basically have a moving queue. There's very little delay, and the heavy volume is really from 52 west to 216 north and 216 south to 52 westbound. So this really, it really handles the traffic very well and much more safely than an intersection would, a typical intersection.
You do understand that Route 52 is currently a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit until you hit 216, so I'm assuming there's got to be something done for that?
Well, what there'll be is there'll be advanced signing that there's a roundabout ahead. These are designed to be negotiated about 25 miles an hour.
It's, yeah.
And at tops, at 25 miles an hour. And obviously, the larger they get, the higher the speed can get. We tried to keep the alignment in a way, particularly 216 coming down, and to really slow that traffic down because, when you think about it, the slip ramp was nice because it basically was an eyebrow. It took them out of, they never even went into the roundabout, but they would have traveled at a lot higher speed, and there would have been a point where they would have to merge with someone that was within the roundabout. So in a sense, the state's position was really probably the better one in that case.
And you do know that there's a lot of heavy traffic coming from a business up on top of the hill that has a boatload of tractor trailers on a regular basis going through there.
They can be handled, this will handle them, this will support it.
Is the median?
Just to further clarify that, I think that would be, one of our primary comments to just in regard to making sure that, the treatments that are needed and are appropriate for a high-speed approach would be looked at. And, they can include things like lengthening the splitter island, inducing some curvature before you get there. I mean, there are other treatments that can be done, and I think that's definitely something that has to be looked at for this roundabout based on its location and the speeds that are out there.
Even
Is
sometimes,
that something specifically that was coordinated with the DOT and that they commented on, or any adjustments were made for that?
No, they hadn't, other than the eyebrow, we used to call it, other than that, they were very satisfied with the design itself. The fact the splitter islands are 75 feet almost in length, that sort of peels you away from the intersection and, will slow you down as you go, as you negotiate it. But there was no real, at their point, we had done, in the traffic analyses, we actually did the Pill's priority investigation location for this, and it was a high accident location, so they saw this as a real solution to the kind of accidents that were exhibited at this location.
So I just want to reiterate, Ed, what you said. You're right. You're coming 55 miles an hour, headed towards a traffic circle you're not
Right.
familiar with. First couple of years out, there's no consideration to drop the speed down to
Oh, no,
45 or something
there
like
might be ultimately, as we progress this further, there'll be much
or
more
rumble
advanced
strips or
signing.
something
That's
like
what I
that
was gonna
to
say,
It's a really
rumble strip for
straight
sure.
road.
Yeah, it's coming,
Sure.
coming down Stormville Mountain into that long straightaway.
Absolutely.
People are not gonna be slowing down in that section.
The rumble
Well,
strip,
especially when they're not used to it yet,
55 miles an hour feels slow on that road. It's very long and very straight.
I think some of the things, though, certainly there's a potential to induce some curvature and even reverse curvature, which would help slow you down. And then, I know he said 75 feet for a splitter island. Sometimes on higher speed transitions, those splitter islands can be as long as 200 feet. So that it really puts you in a position of where you feel more confined and will slow down to the right speed. You actually have to provide some kind of transition from what the operating speed is out to to the 20 to 25 miles an hour to negotiate the roundabout. That has to be provided. Like, you can't just expect someone to slow down.
right.
Like, it has to be, it has to be intuitive.
Yep.
to-
is
Like
that
when-
a DOT purview, Brent? I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yes, it
but,
is.
understand that I think even roundabouts is a progressing design evolution, right? So, I mean, they're being utilized, there certainly are effective types of intersections, but, I mean, there are even, ASHTO produces guidelines on how to transition high-speed approaches to roundabouts, so I think.
Yeah, I'm thinking that whole section's gonna have to have a reduced speed limit, because we got at least 2 or 3 more roads that are gonna be connected into that with people coming in and out of there, in that straightaway section there with these 2 projects here.
And even understanding the operating speeds, even, again, posted speeds are one thing, but then operating speeds are entirely another, right?
Right.
So if it's a straight stretch and there's not much friction alongside the road, people are gonna tend to drive the way they feel comfortable.
Speed
And-
limits
and
are a
right at that
recommendation, yeah.
Right at that intersection now, it is 45, the speed limit.
Right where,
Changes to-
the
Right.
transition
The transition is right
a
there.
100
45.
yards before
Right.
that, if that.
So that they may, I guess DOT may consider adjusting the speed zone through the
So I
flats.
think that would be, almost an absolute, that they would look to modify where those speed zones are, because, right, you wouldn't bring a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit into a roundabout.
So speaking of the splitter islands and lengthening them, it looks like the one on this printed picture might be longer than the one on the computer. It's hard to see from here, but it looks like we just saw that presentation of a 6-lot subdivision that's driveway is gonna come right into the island.
I think that splitter island is right at the intersection of where 216 is presently.
Yeah.
So that residential driveway is quite a distance further down, west on 52. I think that's something we'll make sure we clarify and know the distance of that driveway from, either 216 or this roundabout.
I just think about like somebody trying to make a left and get into the intersection and either having to not be able to, or.
That splitter island here, most of that, the extension there is paint. It's, what is checked out there is actually almost like a rumble strip. It's a raised island.
Sure.
Is that now gonna block
Yeah,
that
it's color
driveway for the,
contrast.
for the, r-
Yeah,
for the
it's
red
like
roof?
stamped
and-
out.
and-
At least
The Redbird
from
end?
Mr. Gillespie had explained, and I think we'll verify that. But I think that driveway was a distance removed from the intersection of 216. This splitter island is actually right at the location of the existing 216. So I think the driveway's further to the west, but we'll be certain to
Yeah,
verify.
because you'd hate to have, somebody couldn't make a left into
No, I
their
don't think
driveway
that would
because
be
that
acceptable.
island is in
I
the
don't
way.
think that would be
you know?
acceptable, right?
Okay. Thank you very much. So we will now open things up for public comment. If you would like to come up, I think we have a place to sign in at the podium, so please come in, sign in your name, let us know who you are, and
There's already a couple names, but I just put my name under others.
Yeah, you just sign in
Fine.
and then you can speak.
address?
Jackie,
That's on
did-
paper.
Do we,
Just your name and address is fine.
name is fine. And then you can go ahead
can
and
speak.
speak.
I can right now?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm number 3, though.
That's all right.
Number 1 and 2 won't get insulted.
Number 4 won't either.
My name is Tirza Malavenda. Can we put the houses picture up there? I was here in 2005. A few other neighbors were as well. Luckily, it's much better now. That was scary. The first question I have, I didn't quite understand where the road is that connects to Summit Woods.
It's that farm lane.
I know you need, emergency exit in case something goes wrong with all those people living there. And I couldn't figure it out from the picture where that road's gonna be.
You'll see once she puts it up.
Is it actually gonna be a road or only an emergency thing, whether Summit is there or not?
So do you see where the arrow is?
It's gonna be in a,
I can't see it.
It should be a road.
it's gonna be a road.
Yes.
Where
That
she has the
gray is
cursor?
gonna extend,
See where she's moving the arrow?
Oh, back there. I
and
thought
that goes into Summit Woods.
Okay, so that's always gonna be there,
Yes.
Yes.
To the podium.
even when there's no Summit?
We just have to have you, I'm sorry, we can't pick up your voice, sorry.
It's always gonna be there, that little road.
Yes.
Okay. Can I show you where I live, or you don't care?
But do spend more time back by the microphone if you would.
Maybe, Michelle, can we?
The first 6. I already asked for a privacy hedge,
Take that down.
'cause
She's to the
Oh,
left
in the
of the
front?
6 homes.
The
those
first
first
6 houses to go.
houses,
Yeah.
I'm,
right in
I'm
there.
the white stuff.
Right, you're over there in the front.
So I just asked for a privacy hedge, which it was already said that they're going to do something.
Okay.
I mean, I've lived with no neighbors for a long time, so I'll get used to it. These are individual homes with space in between them, right?
Yes.
So there's going to be no big garbage containers, there's just going to be individual garbage cans in front of the house along their little roads, correct?
Typically, yes.
Right.
Okay. And I don't understand the public water comments, and then there's wells. Could you,
Well, a well exists on the site. I'm not gonna speak for the developer, but the way it was explained to us is a well exists on the site, and then there's gonna be a master plan for water system and sewer system combined together with the other project.
because
So
to
the
me-
wells on this site will contribute water to that municipal system and help bolster that municipal system,
Each house will not have its own well.
right?
That I understand. I just didn't understand how the public water connected into the wells. But the wells are actually putting into the public water.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
And I'm sure there's been a zillion studies plus one, what that's doing to all the wetlands that are around it, right? And my little shallow well will
You-
still have water.
Right, you're correct, and there'd be a hydrogeologist report previously, and then that would be updated based on the new state requirements for the well.
And I've heard comments, I'm kind of a tree hugger, so I worried about the wetlands and all that's in there, because I've lived with them. When people, what's gonna be helping them not have a lot of fertilizer? Is there rules with that, or?
Well, they're protected with space, and the developer indicated that there's gonna be a portion of the land that's actually gonna be put towards the National Land Bank.
So there can't be a lot of poisoning, and if someone gets a mosquito in the yard, can they personally have the whole place sprayed, or is there gonna be?
No.
who-
What happens is the open space, the darker areas,
Yeah,
okay, that will be under a conservation easement. They're negotiating with a national organization that agrees to hold those easements, and they monitor it. They'll send somebody to the site on a regular basis to make sure there's been no intrusions, no issues created for the wetlands. and then the homeowners association would be notified if there were, and they would have to take steps to remedy it.
And they think the process will take 5 or 6 years to build all 122 houses?
I think that's what they projected.
Oops, sorry. And the houses are gonna be approximately how much for sale? About?
Price range.
I'd rather defer that question, and I don't know if we're doing this where we're gonna answer as we go, or do you want us to wait and answer all at once? I don't wanna,
Normally, I think it's,
however you want to do
we
it.
get the list of questions and then the answer.
I think it would be preferable, yeah, if we just took the questions and then you answer them all at once.
Then I'd ask our president, Mr. Troy, to come up and talk about the
Okay,
And I'm done, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mr. Wood, do I need to be sworn in or anything for
No.
this?
It's not a zoning.
My name is Thomas Troy. I'm president of Charbel Development Corporation. I, as well as my colleague Mark, have been pursuing this application for the better part of 16 years. Ms. Malavenda's questions are all valid. The current market analysis that we're analyzing for this project would have the prices of the homes somewhere in the $600,000 range. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but by the time you install the infrastructure that you've heard explained, I think fairly carefully this evening, and deal with the construction costs that we're talking about, it's pretty difficult to deliver homes, new homes in this part of the world for much less than that and keep the lights on. The question that was asked earlier about environmental sensitivity, it's not just the dark blue area, the aqua area, or the mustard buffer area, that those areas are certainly restricted and can't be touched with conservation easements and whatnot, but I believe Mark said it earlier. The lighter green areas that are immediately adjacent to the buffer areas, for the most part, those will be owned by the homeowners association. We're not looking at those lawn area, those green areas as being typical lawn that is heavily fertilized or heavily hit with pesticide. We're looking more at meadow grass or wildflower mixtures, that type of thing. And the lots themselves are actually about 10,000 square feet, somewhere around a quarter of an acre in size. Those are the only lot areas, and those are the lighter yellow, if you will, that are immediately around the house. Those are the only areas that the homeowners would actually have any jurisdiction over in terms of what they put pesticides or any other fertilizers down on. So we've truly, and we've done this before many times, we've truly tried to respect the environment that we're in, and the term conservation subdivision, I think, is very appropriate for this, not only in the land area, but in the way that we're proposing to manage it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Georgianne Small, and I live on 9 Fox Hollow Lane.
And be sure to sign your name in if you haven't already.
Okay, as I was saying, my name is Georgianne Small, and I live on 9 Fox Hollow Lane, which is basically a small private road that's off of Collarbark Road. My concern is, which I've been to many of the other town board members in the past, as far, I remember that the sewer plants and the water pump was to be put over on that side. And then they were proposing to have the trucks go up and down Collarbark Road, which is totally not feasible. There's a lot of erosion on the road.
That's been omitted. The sewer plants are not going to exist on this site.
Okay, so so I get the letter, and it says there may be some kind of a problem, a concern from Collarbark Road. So are they not going to use the access road?
You would have gotten a letter because your property or area butts the boundary line of the property. But there's no, and they'll correct me,
I don't even
but
know where it is up
with
there.
this adjacent, with this amended plan, there's no interface with Culliver Park Road at all.
Okay, so we're not
It'll
affected.
stay the way it is.
Oh, it's staying the way it is.
Right.
Okay. And then can I just kind of voice an opinion, or is that not? Sure.
Yes, you may.
Okay. I think, okay, I really have a problem with the price of the housing that they're proposing, which they said like $600,000. I know there's many young people in this community in East Fishkill that would love to start with a house. Like my son, for example, he's 30 years old, he works for the state. He can't even afford a house in East Fishkill. And I think it's kind of off the charts to be asking $600,000 for these homes. I mean, you have seniors that would like to downsize, stay in the community. You have young people that grew up here, that also work around the area, that would love to also stay in the community. I feel like what we're doing is we're pushing out native people that have been here practically all their life, and they cannot afford a house. So why are we discussing $600,000 homes? Like, where are the people coming from? Westchester. And then people will say, oh, no, it's going to bring, it brings money into the area. But what people don't seem to understand is that when you're bringing people up from the Bronx, you're bringing people up from Westchester. Yes, they can afford those houses because the houses they're selling are worth a whole lot more than what people here can afford. So, and you're really not bringing in money because the people who work down in Manhattan, in the Bronx, in Putnam, in Westchester, they don't shop around here. When they come home, when they're coming home from those areas, they're stopping off in Putnam, Cortland, Westchester, and doing all their shopping. They're not shopping here. They're shopping on their way home when they're commuting. So I think we're really doing a big disservice to people who remained in this area with the hopes that one day they would be able to have a house. And we're just shooting it away. Like, we should have varied populations. Like, you should have people in their 20s being able to afford some sort of housing in East Fishkill, whether it be Hopewell or Stormville. You should be able to have people from all varied ages to live here. But what's happening is you're pushing into most people in their 40s and 50s are buying in East Fishkill. And I think we need to have more affordable housing, because this is just ridiculous.
No, ma'am, I think the board, I think everyone would share that, but we've had public hearings here over the last year for senior living apartments, people with pressure, and the board was criticized for approving that. We've had proposals here for apartment rentals for the younger folks to be able to start. The board's taken community opposition, so I think the community is divided about that. So certainly everyone hears and respects your thoughts, but
Well, yeah, but the thing is we're not being respectful to our seniors either, which way you work it. I mean, a lot of seniors would like to have a smaller home in East Fishkill, which does not cost $400,000, $500,000, and $600,000. So where are they going? Over to Fishkill?
they're going to be living hopefully
Or
on
in
Joe's mother's road in
Florida.
82.
You know what I'm saying? But I think we're not making the chance for any of that.
I think the
I mean,
town
yes,
attorney,
I think the reason why people say, no, they don't want the lower is because they think riffraff are gonna come in. And that is not true.
but we've argued those points. And like the town attorney said, we had the one apartment complex that was brought before us, and we had a very strong opposition. And there was comment specifically, and they used the term almost riffraff. So it is a divided community in some, and your opinion is respected and duly noted, but there is a divide amongst people as to how things should be. It's a tough thing, but it's definitely, you know, an opposition, and but if you talk to the developer of this project, or if you sat down and look at the costs that he's incurred right to this point, I think you'd be shocked.
Well, I'm just saying, we're not making opportunities for the younger people. I mean, I do know my son has a very good job, works for the state, 32 years old, would love to buy a house, can't do it. You know, and I think that's a shame, and I have no problem with young people coming in here. I mean, you want to be selective, you can be selective.
Yeah, but we don't control the market.
Right,
You
but I
know.
still say 600,000 for a development is a little high there. I think they should have varied houses, like different area, like you can have like a $450,000, $400,000 home with the $600,000 homes. It can work. I mean, it has before in different developments. It's just, you're looking for big profits. I mean, my father was a builder, my father was an excavator, so I get the whole cost thing. But I think they can be much lower than $600,000. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman number 4.
Yeah, where's number 4 here, yeah?
I don't know who wanted to
I'm assuming that they were presenting earlier.
I'm going to apologize in advance in that some of the things in my statement probably have been addressed in reports and such. I haven't been following as closely as I should be, perhaps. So with that in mind, I will just read the statement, because it's how I feel, and I'd like for it all to be on the record. So dear members of the Planning Board and fellow residents of East Fishkill, my name is Neil Palladino, and for the past 23 years, my wife Linda and I have lived on Honeysuckle Court in Stormville. I have 2 letters here, both addressed to the Planning Board. One is dated June 6, 2011, and the other July 21, 2011. I submitted copies of these letters on those dates in reference to the proposed montage at East Fishkill project. And here I am over 10 years later, again questioning the value and impact of this project. Many things have changed in our town in 10 years, but the multiple concerns I had about this project still remain, and with the growth we've seen in our town during the past 10 years, I believe the impact of these concerns have not diminished, but have grown exponentially. But first, foremost, and most importantly, I ask the question, how will this project benefit the current residents of East Fishkill? And if there is any benefit, which I'm not sure there is, I ask, how will this project impact the quality and standard of living of the current residents of East Fishkill? We have lived here for 23 years, and we've seen many changes in our town during this time. I understand that life changes, times change in the name of progress, and communities change. The change is not always for the better, and I believe that the Montage project is one of those times where change is not in the best interest of the residents of East Fishkill. And I believe that the interests of the current residents should outweigh the profits of a landowner and a builder who will be long gone after we continue with the downsides of this development. What will be the impacts of this new development? Traffic has increased on Route 52 over the last 10 years, and while I readily admit I do not know how many cars will be owned by the inhabitants of these 122 new homes, I venture to guess that 220 is probably a low estimate. Does the town board know the projected number of additional cars that will be added as a result of this project? Do we have an answer for that?
It's in the traffic study
Your
that's
traffic
on
study.
file. I don't think any of us know the number
Okay.
off the top of
Well,
our
I'm
head.
surprised at that, but thank you.
It's generally about one car per resident is for like peak hour traffic.
Okay, so
is
we're
the
talking-
estimate. It doesn't mean there's only one car in the household. It means the estimated amount of traffic that will be produced on the.
Per resident. So
Per,
that's-
per house, yes.
Okay, so that's 250, 300 cars.
Well, no, there's
122
122 units.
122.
Peak hour,
So he's talking
That's
peak
for
hour
residents.
traffic.
I'm sorry, I was thinking for people living in
Yeah.
residence. Gotcha. Okay, so what will be the impact to the current residents by adding the significant additional traffic to an area that already has issues? And what will be the solution? Will 52 have to be widened to accommodate the extra congestion? Will the property owners along this stretch of Route 52 have to give up some of their land to make this happen? Will the residents of East Fishkill have to pay for this project while the builder has moved on to someone else's town? Will our taxes be increased to pay for additional road maintenance? Or will we just have to learn to sit in 2-mile traffic jams while we're trying to get to our homes, work, or into the shopping district in Hopewell Junction? Additionally, a project of this size will undoubtedly put more pressure on the current infrastructure. Our police, fire, highway departments, and our school system will be stretched and taxed, and of course, so will we. And how about property values? We and our neighbors, some of who have been here for 25 years, have spent a large portion of our lives building equity in our homes. What happens when there are now an additional 122 available homes in the adjoining neighborhood? We have seen quite a few new developments on the 52 corridor in our area over the years, and with no complaints. But a project of this magnitude affects everyone in this town. How about the environmental aspect to this project? How will the wetlands and the inhabitants of them be protected? Will there be new environmental studies, or will 10-year-old data be the basis for moving forward? Will the homes at 252 and 216 be protected from runoffs and flooding? To me, it is clear that a project of this magnitude in this area does not make sense. And I ask the board members to weigh these adverse effects against the profits of the very few who will benefit from this project. To weigh the gains of those who will walk away with their pockets full only to impose the unending costs and effects of their endeavors on those who live here and support this community. I ask the members to put the citizens, families, and taxpayers, the schools, highway workers, firemen, police, ambulance members, and all emergency responders' interests ahead of the corporation behind the montage at East Fishkill. Is this our town or is it theirs? In closing, I ask again, how will this project impact the quality and standard of living of the current residents of East Fishkill? And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marie Menachino. I live off of 216 on Gold Road. My first concern is about the aquifer. What guarantee do I have that I'm not going to run out of water because these new 122 homes are taking water from the same thing through the aquifer? So I'm concerned that, like I live up a little bit up on a hill, so I'm wondering if it's going to affect my water pressure. Am I going to lose it? Do I have to drill further for my well? What guarantees do I have that that's not going to happen? My second concern is about the wildlife in the area. As we're building all of these homes, all right, even like the next item on your agenda is about the self-storage that's on the corner of Old 52 and 216. Since they cut down all those trees, I have not had one deer in my backyard. I have not had any wild turkeys in my backyard, and the rabbits are almost non-existent. So when you do a project such as this, what's happening to the wildlife? You're changing the ambiance of Stormville with all these projects. And I want you to understand that a lot of us moved up here to begin with because of that ambiance, because of the nature. I've been up here over 35 years, and I'm seeing things change. I don't mind having the houses in. I think maybe your lots should be a little bit bigger to give more area for wildlife, to allow things to be a little bit more open. but that's a big concern. And then my third concern is about this traffic circle. Right now, in the mornings, because of the rail trail and the bikers and the people that are walking the rail trail, the blinking light on the rail trail on 216 is constantly going off. So you have to stop there, and then you have to wait until you get to the corner, all right? If you do a traffic circle, the school buses and the cars are gonna be backing up from the corner of 216 and 52, backwards onto 216, and then you've got this issue with the rail trail blinking light. So I think you need to consider something like that in terms of the traffic circle. I have been, like at 8:30 in the morning, all right, between the school buses, and at least once a month, there's a backup on 84, and those truckers are coming down from the hill, straight down 52 to catch either 84 somewhere else or to bypass and go to Route 9. All right, they come down really fast. For them to stop and do a traffic circle, or for them to even maneuver around a traffic circle, I think that's gonna be problematic. So I just wanted to make that aware, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Eric Eckley. I'm an East Fishkill resident. Thanks for letting me speak just for a minute or two. I appreciate the comments made by the other folks. I mean, I've lived in the town for almost 30 years, and I've seen a lot of changes, some good, not so good, and some not so good. You know, I think this development's too big. I think that the wetlands is going to be affected dramatically. I think that, as the First Lady who spoke pointed out, that the fertilizers and the pesticides that are going to be put on all those lawns and things are going to just flood into that creek. They're going to kill things in the creek, and they're going to make algae bloom everywhere, and that's going to be destroyed. I think the traffic island is really problematic with the traffic coming down the hill, as you've already talked about. I mean, it's a 5-mile-an-hour road. I don't see how you're going to get, you know, at night. You guys know what it's like out there. It's pitch black. I know there's lots of other stuff. I mean, $600,000 homes, as the other person pointed out, nobody around here can afford that. None of us can. Obviously, this is the new Westchester. That is the long-term goal, and that is the long-term plan, that this is going to be the next Westchester, you know, the leap up. I know Fritos is here tonight. They're offering us $35,000 a year jobs. That's what this big company is bringing to our town, $35,000 a year jobs. And you're going to expect anybody that works at Frito-Lay to afford a $600,000 home. Clearly, that's not even, like, it's just a joke. I just think you guys really need to think about this and think about our town and think about how you want it for your kids. This isn't about like this year or next year. It shouldn't be about their profits. It should be about us that live here, that pay taxes. With $600,000 homes, our houses are all going to get reassessed, and our taxes are going to go up because of this. That's what's going to happen. You all know that's the case. And just think very long and hard about what you're going to do to this town. There's almost 400 houses you're talking about building here today, right in the same area. And you're all talking about using Four Corners water. You guys could tell me how that's going, because I know Four Corners water system is kind of a mess right now, and I don't see how you're going to run another 400 houses off of that. So maybe you, if you want to speak about that, or if you want to have some answers next time.
This as to supplement Four Corners as well.
I mean, that might work. You know, we obviously need to know a lot more about that, because right now Four Corners is not good. I've talked to people that live there. They're not happy about it, and, you know, it needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Hi, Mike Gallagher, I live in Stormville. I got a couple questions. One is on the roundabout. Where's that going to be located exactly?
It's located just to the east of the intersection of 216 and 50.
Just to the east?
Just to the east.
Just enough room.
Just
So
to-
are they still going to be making a hard turn then to get onto the roundabout, or?
No, everyone comes directly into the roundabout, they approach with the splitter island, they negotiate around.
Okay, you mentioned something about the size of it. Can you put that in the size of some roundabouts that we know around here? What compare it to, so we know what we're talking about instead of just numbers?
Probably about the size of the ones on 55 up in LaGrange.
Yeah, and those are really way small. I go there with my campers,
No, it's
28-foot
prob-
camper, and that's too
yeah.
small of a roundabout for the,
Well, these will take a WB 67, which is the largest semi.
is that staying in their lane, or is that running up onto the riprap?
Yep, no, the intent is for them to go onto the apron. That's the intent.
You know the one up by the Rip Van Winkle Bridge at all? You familiar with that roundabout?
No, I'm not. You're up in Kingston, you're talking about?
Columbia,
Catskill, Hudson.
Columbia County.
Columbia
It's a rather
County.
new one.
County, that's-
It's a nice size.
It's
You
huge.
can
Yes.
make it around it.
It's in Valatia, I think.
No, it's in Hudson, or.
Hudson.
In Hudson.
Right?
No,
So, I mean, that's a decent sized one, and they didn't have to lower the speedway down because they could go across that with 35, 40, 45 in a car with no problem.
Yeah, that's
So-
the intent is.
Yeah, and I don't see that happening, like you say, when these vehicles come down the hill and they're still moving. It's like the lady said, people that get kicked off 84, when you have row after row of trucks coming down there, you know, when they stop the highway for an accident or whatever, that is a problem. Another question I have, you're gonna run the well and the septic up through Stormville? Through
Yes.
the
Yes.
52?
Yes, yes. Right past your house, Mike,
Questions and have
right
an
past your
answer.
house.
Yeah, so are we all getting hydrants up through there, or is that just a pipe running up without assistance of us at all?
There'll be hydrants, yeah.
There'll be hydrants every 2 feet, so, all right, thank you.
Any other members of the public to speak about the Montage project? If there's no one else that wishes to speak, are there any final comments or anything that the applicant would like to make before we adjourn the public hearing to next month?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to present. We will, as indicated, we will put up a much larger sign, which will face properly and hopefully much more readable. And we will obviously respectfully consider all the comments that have been made. We look forward to working with the town consultants as we work through the sewer, work through the water, and we recognize we've got some tasks ahead of us, which we'll work through. Thank you.
I
Excellent.
just think there's a comment from consulting engineers that would it be prudent to adjourn it more than just the 1 month, because there seems to be a lot of technical issues that
I mean,
need
there's
to
a
be-
lot of work to do, and I mean, I don't know.
We would, whatever, obviously, we've been at it for 15 years, so.
Well, yeah, but now
And
it's.
now we're
it's in
getting into the details
stage.
of the work, and it takes
All right.
months and months
So
to prepare
what
the
would-
details.
If I may, what would you suggest in terms of, we want to move the dial, so if you want to have a meeting among the consultants themselves?
Well, I mean, we'll talk to the town officials, but I mean, I think that, I think we should have a meeting to basically have the town, like officials, agree on basic things like road profiles. I don't think we have road profiles yet. We need to have like a cross-section of, the highway. We need to like agree on that. So then, we need to like agree on the layout of water, sewer, and drainage, where they're gonna be in the road, basic things like that, so then your engineers can get into, the details of the work. I mean, this type of engineering takes months and months to do.
So,
But,
okay, and I understand that, being a undergraduate history major with a degree in counseling psychology and a law degree, I don't know
You're
profiles.
dangerous then, right?
So, but anyway, the point is this, we want to work, we got to work through it. I think that we want to collaborate. I've already written a letter to the town in terms of, commencing to work on the sewer district.
Yeah.
And I know that Mr. Troy, Mr. Canoli want to pull a hook and have me sit down and speak.
We understand the issue, and we're not trying to squeeze anybody or push the timeline here. We're certainly willing to agree to, 3 months, if that's at least reasonable. And if it's not, then we'll come back and
I mean, that would be my
kick
opinion,
the
but
can
again, it's
down the
just
road further.
my opinion.
After 16 years, an extra couple months, one way or the other, isn't going to kill anybody. We understand what you guys
Huh?
are looking for. We're certainly prepared to work.
Yeah, something like that. I mean,
Set it to a January date to
Can
be
we just get
determined.
clarification so the board, may we work through maybe Zoom meetings, through some
course.
additional meetings?
Right.
at-
Yeah, I mean, Brendan's got to be involved,
I know.
Scott, Michelle, yeah.
We could pull it.
Sure.
Actually, we've been doing that, Pete, but I haven't seen you in a while, so you would be the next guy that we'd want to start with. But I think we can handle that. I think 3 months is reasonable to start.
Sure.
And most of our details, like the profiles, those things are shown on the plans, but they need to be looked at in greater detail.
So what's the meeting
Need
in
to redline
January?
a set of plans. I know. we
Okay.
can
Hey,
handle
I'm sorry, there's a lot of background noise, folks. in the
Folks.
audience, we're still conducting a meeting here.
Thank you.
I think the one thing we would ask is that you continue to keep your website updated with correspondence and things like that so that we can stay abreast of it as board members as you're working through some of these other things, probably with DOT and other agencies and our professionals. Just That's very
That's a
helpful.
great idea. What I'll do, everything you have that's been published and circulated is up there. What we just submitted to the board, I'll post that under the preliminary subdivision application, and then we'll build on that, so you know where to go.
And that's a public website, so with
Yeah,
members of
it's
the
been-
public here that are interested, that keeps everybody kind of informed as to where we are with the process.
Website address will be on the sign. It was on the sign already, but we're gonna fix that as well.
Okay.
We will install a V-shaped sign. My inclination is that it will be fairly close to the existing intersection of 216 and 52.
Right.
So that most eyeballs will see it. That's an area where people tend to look
Prevalent.
more than they do when they're driving.
And it appears that January 11th would be the second Tuesday.
Okay, so January 11th would be a date that would be 3 months out? Does that work?
Could we, when might we first have the meeting with Mr. Sotero?
Anytime you
It's
can
not
schedule.
just, not just me, it's a lot of us.
I'm suggesting, obviously, we're anxious to move it as quickly as we can, but obviously, we recognize the task before us.
I think if I understand where our counselor is heading, is if we are all collectively able to come in before 3 months, we don't want to say, don't come back for 3 months. We want to give ourselves some latitude.
Might it be advisable to try to adjourn it until a December meeting, and we come back?
push
and
it out
do a
if we
public
need
hearing? You hear where we are in terms of
The only
status.
thing that does, though, is the public's going to come in December, they're gonna be looking for plans before that meeting.
Not going to have any.
And if it's realistic that you'll have it ready and done, then sure, but to have it scheduled for a public hearing, the signs up, people come, then you adjourn it, I don't think that's respectful to the public either.
Yeah.
And you would have to make a formal submission before the December meeting of all the information. I mean, so,
I'm not sure that that's out of the question. I think we're pretty close to being ready to do that.
Sure. Look, I mean, that's okay. The only reason that, like I say that is because, again, as I mentioned during Summit Woods, I've been personally involved in another project like this where we represent the developer. And it's a lot of work to put together all the details, but if you guys think you can do it, that's fine.
We have two teams already on this, as you know. We have Colliers Engineering working on the infrastructure. We have Day and Stokoza working on their civil engineering plans. Our plans are preliminary, as you said in your email. We have some comments that we worked on. We're finalizing those. There's a whole new set that we're ready to sit down with staff and look over. We just received traffic comments. Those comments were just forwarded to Mr. Rosillo. We're ready to address those. I think we can assemble either remotely or in person, I would say in November, at least for one meeting. Maybe we do a follow-up meeting and but I would agree that if it took us that long to get to that first meeting, then yes, January would more likely be the best option, but, and rather than push.
So
push that-
what I would suggest is that we have, very soon, we can have maybe a Zoom meeting, and just so that, the consultants can say, hey, look, we think that you should submit like preliminary this, and this, so that then we can like agree on basic things, like I said, and then your engineers can go on and detail, the grading off the profile. It's going to save you time and, money if we look at certain things so that So you're not wasting time, and then we get the plans, and well, the road profile's not quite right, that's gonna change the grading. So,
But Pete, isn't it also together with the other project that these meetings have to kind of take
that's
place
correct,
in
yeah.
unison? So,
Yes, that's
If
correct.
I may, I wanted to address that.
yeah.
We are very cognizant of the specific, for lack of a better word, spine infrastructure that needs to be there to support either our project solo or our neighbor's project solo. You heard Mark talk about the phasing of this project. And I don't want to bore the board or waste time, but the site almost lends itself to three natural phases when you see how the wetlands come through and where the crossings are. It would be very unlikely that we would start the project for the first phase, which normally would only have 6 lots in it. It doesn't make any economic sense to do that. So what you're really looking at is the first crossing, if you will, coming in from 52 into that center portion, which has somewhere around 60 or 70 lots. I guess that's where it makes economic sense to build that. And by doing that, we need to carry our roadway out, finish the next crossing, and get it out to where it will ultimately tie into Summit Woods. Mr. Wood absolutely correctly said, we will post bonds for that. If we don't complete the work per our agreement, you have the right to come. It's done, been doing it forever. That's the way it works. So there is security in place for that. I understand the water and the sewer can function independently from either project out to 52, up to 216 and Old 52 in Stormville, and then tie into the common line that goes, both common lines, water and sewer, that go back to Four Corners. So it's not as complicated as it sounds. I know when you look at it on paper, it doesn't answer itself, but we've been looking at this for quite some time. We can assure your professionals, and I believe the board itself, as to how we can be autonomous, but also dependent upon one another where we have to be. That's a concern that I think will put you at ease on as we come back.
So with that, we have no objection to adjourning the public hearing until January, and we're hoping that fairly quickly we can set up a Zoom among the consultants. And we understand and respect the issue in terms of emergency access. I went through this on a 104-lot subdivision down in Putnam County, and we worked through it, and the houses are selling very nicely. Similar development. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
We actually want to
so-
adjourn them to the date before we.
So, before you leave, I'm just going to go
Gentlemen.
ahead and ask for a
Gentlemen.
quick
We need to
motion.
adjourn your meeting before you leave.
Grab him.
So, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this public hearing until our January 11th meeting.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
John, just one question, and maybe, I don't know if it's for Tom or for Michelle.
We just had to close the public hearing, that's what you needed to be here for.
Since we haven't actually,
Oh, yeah, adjourn it until January, yes.
just hold on 1 second, I'm sorry.
I did say adjourn.
Since we haven't actually approved our 2022 meeting schedule yet, if that date for some reason
We'll
changes
make it
by a
that
week.
day.
What's that? No, it's for your sign on your
Well, yeah.
property has to reflect the actual date. So I want to make sure it's not typically until November or December meeting that we confirm our 2022 dates.
Yes,
So
we
it
want
may
the sign to be correct, so it's going to be large, and we want to have the right date on it.
January 11th.
So
I
thank you.
agree.
Okay, I think Tom is going to take care of that for us,
Yep.
and we'll make sure we communicate.
Like the gas pump?
Thanks again.
Thank you. Okay.
Happy Halloween.
Take care.
Okay, I'd like to bring the meeting back to order, please. And we have a public hearing for Stormville Square. Could I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Public hearing is open, and the floor is yours.
Floor is mine. Brian Stokosa, Dane Stokosa Engineering, here tonight with the Stormville Square application. 2 parcels located at the intersection of 216, Old Route 52. As part of this site plan application, we're going to be combining the lots. One of the lots right now has the existing Stormville Pizza and bar, small parking lot area, parking lot in the rear of the building, also in the front of the building. It accesses directly off of Route 216. As part of this application, again, we're going to be combining these 2 pieces, and the intent is to create a new commercial entrance just south of the existing parking lot associated with the existing building. It'll be a 3-way, actually a larger two-way entrance. There'll be 2 turning lanes out, 1 turning lane in, and then it'll transition down into a 24-foot travel lane inside the site. It'll go toward the rear of the site, and we'll have a indoor climate controlled building, about 20,000 square foot and change, plus or minus. We'll have some parking in the front of the building, also around the sides. There'll be a retaining wall in the back that holds back some of the soil as the property goes up in elevation. Where the building's going to be situated, we're going to be dropping it down, be leveling it to obviously have a flat finished floor on the climate-controlled building. And then we'll take some of that soil and move it toward the center of the lot to give it a nice gentle grade up toward the pad site. In our latest round, we did a preliminary SWIP design that incorporates infiltrators and some catch basins around the site. So the object is to get any stormwater regenerate, filter it, and then get it into the ground via stormwater chamber. 2 chamber sections, one located in the center, and then we're going to have a small chamber section located near the entrance that we'll be constructing. The applicant and I recently went out and did some soil tests out there. Really nice material, standing gravel loam. A little bit of rock as you go further down, but other than that, it's a really good material out there, well-draining material. So we updated our last plan set to include some of the discussions we had. We added some tractor-trailer movements through the site. We can swing one of the bigger WB62 tractor-trailers around the rear building with no conflicts. We made mention that we had preliminary discussions with the DOT regarding the entrance. Obviously, we'll be putting additional details together on that entrance, and we'll be coordinating that with the town engineer and town traffic engineer. We went to the ARB. We have a rendering here of the building that was blessed by the ARB. What the applicant's trying to do is tie the existing colors on the existing building to the building in the back. And that's represented here on the floor.
Do you have approval, or is that pending?
I believe we have approval on that, right? They blessed it. Yes. We did the one thing that they wanted to add was the little miniature cupolas on each end to match the center cupola. But they did give us a blessing on that. So here tonight just to receive public comment. And obviously continue to work with the town consultants on their comments and their review.
Okay. Any questions by board members or professionals before we open this up for the public?
Do you have any?
Well, I'm just gonna bring up, I did talk again to the New York State DOT permit engineer. They are conceptually okay with the location of the proposed driveway. They will review the detail of that driveway and the detail of the operation of the existing driveway in the permit application. So I think from that perspective, they're okay. We did ask them to look a little bit in terms of, I think, the way they're going to accommodate the tractor-trailer movements out onto 216, was they were going to provide an apron. We've made some suggestions to them on how we'd like to see that apron. Maybe not something that you guys are familiar with, probably the new floories on 82, where they basically put a traversable curb and some stamped concrete, for the off-tracking for the big trucks. Something similar to that, I think, would suffice here pretty well. I think that's pretty much the bulk of what we had. They did, if you remember, the last time they presented, they still had an access driveway off of their proposed driveway into the front plaza. They have moved that to the rear of the building. So I think that, effectively eliminates that potential conflict with traffic turning at 216. So I think that was a good addition or a good change. And I think we also just made a minor comment with regarding to the parking stalls where parking stalls are adjacent to curbing, to look to taper the curbing so we don't have it square in. And it's something we'll probably start commenting or get Pete to comment on all applications, looking to taper the curbs a little bit at the where we have raised channels next to parking. That's it for my end.
So we had a comment memo, October the 8th, just a couple of highlights. Brian, there's a structure on the southerly property line that's got a encroachment.
Yeah,
And so,
we talked to the applicant, talked to the owners of that piece. So there's two structures, it looks like. There's a larger structure that comes in, it's actually a fence that's kind of dilapidated. They're gonna remove that, the applicant's gonna remove that for the owner. And then there's an existing garage that's close to the property line, and there's actually a lean-to off of the side of the garage, let's say pointing north, that crosses into our property. It's in some fairly bad condition, so the applicant talked to the owner again. We're gonna remove that as part of the site plan application for them.
so how would we deal with that then, Tom? That would have to be like a condition of CO or something like that?
Right.
That be rectified?
Yep.
Okay. All right, and then, let's see, what else? Again, we just had a couple minor things. DOT, as far as the retaining wall, that you moved it back from, the property line, it's still a pretty tall wall. Most times we don't require a design until building like permit, but being this one is pretty large, we'll need the design as part of the site plan approval.
Yep, and we went ahead and we anticipated we would kind of be going down this avenue.
Yep.
More of a precast, a poured-in-place wall. So we've gone through some preliminary design, detailing the stem section, the center
Yep.
section. So we're running numbers now with the applicant, just from a viability
Cost,
standpoint.
you're right.
So we'll provide that information.
That was it for now.
Okay. Any questions or comments from board members? If not, we'll open it up to the public. If there are any members of the public here to speak for or against the project, please come up and sign in. No, that's fine.
All right, so I'm Marie Minikino, and I live sort of like behind where he's building right now. My concern is about lighting. What kind of lighting is going to be around there? What kind of security? This is going to sound really weird, but I know people that work at Greenhaven Correctional, all right, and there's a concern that the storage facility can become a drop-off for drugs or other paraphernalia, and then it becomes a pickup point for some of the security guards that are not on the up and up. So that's a concern that I have. I know you can tell on visiting days, there's the black vans that come up filled with people from down in the city, and they come up to visit, and that's fine. But I'm concerned that this may bring another element into the visitation, and it's a concern of mine. Also, there were rumors that this was going to be multi-story, but from what I saw on the picture, it's only one story. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
picture.
Right there next to you.
Brian, can you
Right
just turn
next to
that
the
slightly
podium.
so it faces the podium?
Are there being provisions made that eventually this could be raised up and become a two-story?
Not without
No.
coming back to the planning board.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Mike Gallo again, got a couple questions. What's the hour of operations would this be run at?
It'll be somebody in the front office. The front office
Brian, yeah, could you speak to the microphone?
will be, so the way this operation will work, there'll be a gate here, right before the storage building. There'll be a tenant space in here where there'll be an employee here that would actually operate business day, and then they'll have a key code to get in, like a typical, like hopefully storage has, there'll be a key entry to get in. But
So
there'll be an
with the
employee
key
there.
entry, they can get in 24 hours a day with that?
I would
or-
assume that's what they're doing, yeah.
Oh, so what are we doing for the lighting, the lights from the cars from coming across the road? Night there?
So there'll be lighting,
Right.
we propose along this entrance drive here. We have lighting in through the building.
And then you have the cars coming in at night here, coming in across here, through here park and shining across.
Yeah, if you, I mean, is it okay to go back and forth with?
Sure.
If we have a landscaping plan that we've done, so this entire section here that is, adjacent to the residential component, we're doing, evergreen trees spaced type, so that there is, cover and-
Keep the light on your
Yes.
site?
Yes, sir.
And where's that building that you're taking down? Where was that encroaching on your property?
There is an existing, this is a cemetery, I believe here.
So it's a little
Building right here.
little garage there?
There's a little lean-to that's
Okay.
across the property.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public to speak?
Hello, my name is Barak Zimmerman. I represent the owners of an apartment building that is across the street from the proposed self-storage development. And my concern, and the concern of some of the tenants in the property, which is 6 units, is that a development of this size really changes the nature of the neighborhood. And the reason people have moved to Stormville, and I mean, I haven't lived here for 25 years. I don't live here at all, and so you can call me a carpetbagger, but I'm speaking on behalf of the people that do live here, and I think I'm echoing a lot of what's already been said and points that have been raised, is that, well, I keep thinking of the movie It's a Wonderful Life, when Jimmy Stewart goes to that town, and, you know, in that dream sequence where he sees Pottersville, and the town has changed dramatically, and, you know, it's not the town that would have been. It's got this 21,400 square foot development, which is radically different from anything else. I mean, the woman spoke earlier about how all the wildlife is gone. The deer have stopped picking up the apples from the ground. She told me this on a side note. You know, the rabbits are gone, the turkeys are gone, and that's just so far where they're just clearing all the vegetation. When you actually put in 21,400 square feet of self-storage, which I'm assuming is probably 150, 200 units, I'm not sure. I mean, the gentleman spoke about the lighting. There's issues about traffic. There's issues about transient people coming into the neighborhood. I mean, I don't know, I think probably most people have seen Breaking Bad. I mean, I know this is fanciful, it's TV, it's just a fiction, but people do use self-storage for a variety of purposes. And I'm just very concerned about what that kind of development is going to do to the character of the neighborhood and the quality of life of the people who live here. That said, you know, business is business. You can't stop progress. You can delay it. I'm not trying to do any of that. I'm just hoping that the town can encourage, compel the developers to do enough to mitigate the damage to the quality of life in terms of noise, lighting, light pollution, traffic. Our little property has a lot of people who come through, they do U-turns because there's no place to do it. And so we have constant U-turns happening in the property where the tenants are asking me to put up no U-turn signs. I'm just thinking, when you increase the density of the usage of the area by 150 or so units, we're gonna have a lot more traffic. So essentially it comes down to, what is the developer doing to mitigate light pollution, noise pollution, the nature of the usage, and those are my questions. I understand there's going to be foliage, but right now there's a lot of foliage is gone. I mean, all the trees that were there, most of them have been knocked down. So, and I can't understand what I'm looking at. This area of
That's for their septic.
So there's going to be an enormous septic system?
No?
Stormwater.
Stormwater.
Oh, okay. And you're raising that up?
Well, we're gonna be leveling, we're gonna be doing a cut and fill, so all the
Okay,
material will be from the site.
So is that going to make it's going to make this development more visible from the road?
Just the opposite.
Okay. And what is the plan with the light? By the way, the other night, apparently, one of the clearing machines was left on all night long. One of the tenants told me that he was concerned. He said he wished he'd gotten a video of it because he was concerned if that's what's going to happen with the construction alone. So just so I understand, it'll be open 9 to 5, but there'll be 24-hour access, is that right? And the lighting, is it going to be motion activated or is it going to be all night long?
So this is a site plan process, so there's town code that we have to follow. So we'll be meeting all town code requirements. So the lighting will be full cut off, it'll be LED, there'll be no light casted onto neighboring properties, there'll be zero casting of any light over the property line. The lighting plan is reviewed by the town planner, town engineer, and we will be in the confines of that code. So it's specific to foliage, we're providing screening all the way around. I think, Brennan, you could probably help me out here, but I think from a traffic impact standpoint and trip generation out of multiple uses in town, this type of use would be relatively a low traffic generator. And the fact that we're accessing onto a state road, there wouldn't really be any level of service drop at that intersection that would require any kind of additional analysis. I'm just kind of going on a general rule of thumb here. So the points that you raise, I think we've mitigated through the site plan process, and the board is aware of those mitigation issues.
Okay. Well, thanks. I just wanted to raise those issues. Seems like I'm not the only person who's thinking about these things, and thank you for your time.
Hi,
Good evening.
Maria Mahoney. I live in Stormville, 16 Moonlight Drive, Stormville. And I just had a few comments about the development going in, the building going in. I've lived in Stormville for almost 30 years myself. And I, for one, am very happy to see some new investment in the area. And including the development, I know that it's going to make a huge impact. And there's a lot to be considered with the new development, but I look forward to seeing something done in that corner, and I think that it can only improve the character of Stormville. If you've driven along within a quarter of a mile of that corner, there's quite a few homes that have been fallen in disrepair or abandoned, and I think investment in that corner might add to the residents' incentive to invest and maybe upgrade. And the improvements on 52 at the intersection of 216 and 52, I think that would allow the town to maybe even close that road, Old 52, to heavy traffic finally, because the trucks could come around that roundabout and then bypass Old Route 52 for finally, and make it safer for all of us to walk and use our bikes across the bike path. So I've seen some of Mr. Gigliotti's work. We've all seen it. He's done great work around the town. He already improved that center already. It looks prettier. It attracts more business. And from what I hear, there might be more investment coming across the street. And it would be nice to have something there that might attract those rich people from Trump Golf Course a quarter mile and get their gas and stop and buy something that might be developed in the near future. So why not make Stormville better? And quite honestly, talking about looking like Pottersville, that's what it looks like now, and I would rather have it look like Bedford Falls. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? If not, so, Michelle, so we still have a few things to collect from the standpoint of,
Let's going on with your circulation? Did you guys get any circulation? Because we declared our intent to be lead agent at the last meeting. Is it? Yeah, so I think we just need to circulate still and before we can declare.
Okay. For that reason, do we want to try to keep the public hearing open, or shall we close it?
I think it's just detail. I mean,
That's what I'm
got the
thinking.
public comments, so.
I don't know if anything's gonna change significantly.
So I'll accept a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that closes the public hearing. You still have some things to bring in to subsequent meetings? Very good.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda, public hearing for Project Niagara, Rolling Frito-Lay Sales LP.
Great, thank you.
We'll wait just a second.
You know what, the other thing we forgot to do was second call that Emma's Cafe.
Say what?
We never second called that Emma's Cafe. Remember we passed that?
I said I'd put it to the end.
Okay.
So,
Good evening.
hi. So just a moment, we'll wait for our other board member to join us,
Yes, sure, of course.
and then we'll open your public hearing.
I will gladly stretch my legs.
Okay, yeah. My watch keeps thumping me, telling me it's time to stand up.
I have more if you want. I'll leave them out. I'm sorry, I heard you. I'll leave them there. Just grab them. I feel very old. It'll be like 30 years. I've been here. I've been here 50. God. Yeah. What about change? Change all. You went to catch him, right?
Hmm? I was gonna wait for Sarah.
You're after me. Yeah. There you go.
This is an important enough project, I might as well have everybody here.
I still keep in touch with you. Official plans. Oh, yeah. I developed them so tight.
Excuse me, Jackie, just as a point of interest, did anybody from Emma's Cafe arrive? Pardon me? The one that we deferred?
they never showed.
Okay, okay. So next time, good.
Absolutely. Yeah, as soon as you got over
Okay.
High Lane and then.
So, we'll get started with Project Niagara. Could I have a motion to open the public hearing for the project?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you
Please go
very
ahead.
much. For the record, Jennifer Gray with the law firm of Keen and Bean, here representing Rolling Frito-Lay Sales LP in support of its application for the construction of a fulfillment center at the iPark campus. We're here tonight for our continued public hearing on the site plan and subdivision applications that are before you. If you recall, a couple weeks ago, we opened up a joint public hearing with the town board having the economic redevelopment special permit jurisdiction. By way of update, last week we did submit various responses to various comment memos that we have received from town staff, town consultants, and outside agencies. So that was submitted to the board last week. We've responded to those comments. We also submitted a set of revised plans that includes revisions in response to those comments, updated renderings, an updated traffic impact study, updated EAF, water and sewer engineers report, and also a SWIP. Yesterday, we did receive from your traffic engineer an additional comment memo, which is under review by AKRF. Here with me tonight from Frito-Lay, we have Devesh Patel, and we also have from our design professional team, CHA, we have Ron Triers, Jordan Hudak, and Drew Lucas, as well as Todd Cirillo, the project architect. Before I turn it over to Ron Triers to go through some of the updated plans that we did receive, that we did submit, I just want to correct something for the record that was stated about our application on a prior public hearing. There was a statement made that Frito-Lay is going to be offering $35,000 a year jobs. That's incorrect. The salary for employees at the Frito-Lay site will be $50,000 a year plus benefits, and that's 150% of the average Dutchess County wage. So I just wanted to correct
Is
that
that
for the
the
record.
average salary?
$50,000
Is the average
targeted salary.
So
for
I'm assuming that
jobs
your managers and executives would be making more than the people working on the line, and I'm guessing the comment was directed for the people working on the line, so I don't know what they would make, but that's my guess as to where that was coming from.
Yeah, my understanding from my client is that the wages will be $50,000 with benefits, that there will not be $35,000 a year job. So I just wanted to correct that for the record. I didn't want to leave that hanging. So let me turn it over to Ron Triers. If it's okay with the board, we'll go through some updated plans, and if there's any questions that we can answer, we're happy to do that. And obviously, we're interested to hear public comment tonight as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Ron Triers from CHA Consulting. And we primarily wanted to update you on the things that have changed since we've been here before. So for the agenda tonight, we have a brief overview of the project. We'll go through that quickly because everyone's familiar with it already. And then we're going to go through the things that have changed since the September 14th meeting, including site access, some parking space adjustment, and some of the other items. So for a brief overview, the fulfillment center, 155,000 square feet, the main building. There's a guard booth as a separate building and a fleet center as another separate building. The main part of the warehouse building is 79, well, the main part of the building is 49 feet high. There's 25% of the building that's 79 feet high. Loading docks, 109 automobile spaces, 100 trailer parking spaces, 13 tractor parking spaces, and there's no manufacturing on the property. Those are things we've gone over before, so we'll just try to highlight now the things that have changed since the last time we were here. General view of the site in its existing condition, just a large parking lot at the north end of the campus. Next slide is a view of the site looking toward the west, and a view of the site looking toward the east. Access to the site from gate 2 would be allowed auto access, employee access from gate 2. Employees would also be accessing the site primarily from gate 3, and all truck traffic would be coming from gate 3 and into the site. So site access modifications. The access from gate 3 was changed to provide 2 lanes in so that there would be no backups for employees coming in if trucks were at the guard booth there. So there's 2 lanes in from gate 3 all the way into the site to the first intersection in the site. And we've added a ADA parking space at the guard booth, so we've increased our parking on the site overall by 1 space because of that.
Public where the location of the gate 3 is. A lot of people don't realize where gate 3 is.
Yeah, gate 3 is off of Lime Kiln Road. So from 84 to Lime Kiln Road, and then gate 3 is off of that. For the fleet center, we've removed the wash bay from the building. So the building got 24 feet smaller in a north-south direction, and then we increased the spacing a little bit to meet fire code between the fleet center and the fuel island. So fleet center shrunk by 24 feet with the removal of the wash bays, the big change there. And there's 3 parking spaces at the fleet center that'll be dedicated for access to the pump house that's nearby, that's maintained as part of the Global Foundries water system. We've added some additional landscaping at the northwest corner of the site to provide some additional screening by the corner of West Drive and Route 52. And we do plan on adding additional evergreen landscaping along the Route 52 corridor to enhance screening where there are gaps present in the vegetative cover there, and where it's possible with working with existing shade trees and available space there to fill in those vegetative gaps there for screening along 52. The water use for the site has changed a little bit. Our total estimated usage now is 1,245 gallons per day. The wash bay removed about 500 gallons per day from our estimated uses, but we recalculated the general water usage on the site based on an industry standard of 15 gallons per day per person for each of the buildings that are present. The most use being the main warehouse and office building with 74 employees. Fleet Center has 6 employees over 2 shifts, and the guardhouse is manned continuously with, so we figured 3 employees over a day. So the total's 1,245 gallons per day, what we're estimating for water usage. The previous calculations were done kind of based on a fixture count, which is more for, lateral sizing on a peak simultaneous flow condition. And we've kind of revised it to what we feel is an industry standard for what our true effluent will be for the site. Next slide. Sanitary sewer, we've revised from larger pump stations to be 3 small E1 lift stations, going to the same discharge point. And they're not run in series anymore. They're just kind of, the lines will connect Y together, but very small units. Obviously, the Fleet Center with 6 employees, and the guard post building with 1 employee. Very small units, very small amount of flow. And so that's the current sanitary plan. It's just 3 lift stations connecting to the existing outfall as part of the Global Foundries sanitary system that goes to their treatment plant nearby. Electrical, we're continuing to collaborate with Central Hudson Gas and Electric. The plan right now is to pull 2 primary electrical services from Route 52, one for the Fleet Center, and then a separate one that will feed the main fulfillment center building. There'll be a transformer at each building, and then from the main fulfillment center, we'll run a line over to the guard post building. So there's no change in anticipated total demand. I think the only real change with the electrical is we plan on doing 2 feeds from 52 instead of 1 now. Based on comments we received from county planning, we changed the site lighting color temperature from 5,000 to 3,000 K and adjusted some pole heights around the perimeter from 25 feet to 33 feet to try to reduce the ground level intensity of the lighting, so the foot candles went down a little bit in some areas by being able to raise the pole heights. The fixtures will be cutoff fixtures, be nighttime friendly, dark sky approved fixtures. And this is just a slide of the overall site plan. So that's kind of what we wanted to highlight, was what changed since last time. And we certainly welcome any questions you have regarding that or anything else.
So with the wash bay being eliminated, will the washing of the trucks take place at another site, or how is it gonna?
The intent is that the washing of the trucks will take place at other Frito-Lay facilities in the area. There's facilities within a couple of hours, I believe.
Yeah, there's facilities in Connecticut and Acton where those activities could take place. But based on the volume, we didn't feel it necessary here at this location.
So there'll be no washing of the trucks at that site?
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned no manufacturing here, so this is just distribution?
Yes, this is just distribution of goods into the surrounding area, so no manufacturing ships.
The height of the structures is, 79 plus feet in some areas?
Correct, so about 25% of the overall square footage is 79 feet.
Are you gonna have pick modules inside, where you have multiple layers inside, 4 or 5 floors with that kind of height?
Yes, there'll be 8 floors inside.
Okay.
8 tiers, excuse me, that will house the pallets themselves of the product.
Okay, and then you have conveyance throughout to distribute it to the
Correct,
trucks.
to distribute the cases throughout the rest of the building.
At the last public hearing, you mentioned that you were going to try to make this look a little more like an office building since it's right on Route 52. Have you settled on a final elevation look?
We have settled on done more design work around that. We have a meeting scheduled with the ARC tomorrow to go over that in more detail. But yes, we have looked to beautify and have more of an office appeal onto Route 52.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Anything, Pete, or?
I mean, not at this time. We just got a submission, I believe, today.
Okay.
So we'll have to take a look at it.
Okay.
I think we commented on, we did get an advanced copy of the traffic stuff, so we did provide some comments on that. We are gonna take a look at the site plan again. I think the only comment that I might wanna offer now for some consideration would be the Gate 2. Gate 2 is now gonna be where some of the employees will enter the site. I think the bulk of them are still slated now to enter on Gate 3 around the corner on Limekill, because most of them will be coming from the 84 corridor. So it's just the layout of Gate 2, it's large. So, from my perspective, it's over-designed for what it needs to be. It's really gonna be a low-volume employee entrance. And it's a big, wide, open entrance. I think even on your plan, unless it was changed, you show 2 receiving lanes coming into the site. I think there's some opportunity to reduce that a little bit based on, the outlined operation of that gate. So I just leave that for the board and the applicant's consideration.
So that's only ever gonna be used for this site?
Correct.
This building? Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
I thought it was
mean,
still gonna be an entrance.
It's only gonna be for this site.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, it's a privatized road essentially in that regard.
Michelle, anything?
No, I mean, I know, we had a scheduled ARC meeting, which was moved, so now they're coming in tomorrow. So I think we'll have comments from the ARC tomorrow, and we can
Okay.
go on from there.
Great. So are there any members of the public that are here to speak about the project?
Hi, everybody. My name's Eric Eckley. I am East Fishkill resident. I'll put my name down again.
You don't have to write it again, I have it.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, good. Thank you. So I'm glad to hear that the washing facility has been, decided not to be put in. It seemed like that was a bad idea to just run all kinds of chemicals and water, wastewater that way in our town. We have water problems already in a lot of communities, and that just didn't seem like a good idea. So I'm very excited to hear that that's not happening anymore. I was curious about, the trees that you're talking about planting. How tall are you, the trees, the evergreens? Are you going to plant tall trees or little tiny trees? So I'd be curious what the decision there is. It would be nice if they were on the taller side to do the job that I think they're intended to do. Something that just came up, which I found kind of interesting, and I know there's a pilot that you're asking for from the county to reduce your taxes. And one of the things about that is that the facility is supposed to help the community in some way, and we're told that the jobs that they're bringing in are going to help the community. But the fact that they're just telling us now that most of the employees are going to be coming in from I-84 leads me to believe that most of the employees aren't going to be coming from the community, which means the jobs that they're bringing to our community are going to be filled by people outside of our community. And that's simply based upon the fact that they just stated that. So I find that to be very odd, that's what we're giving them tax breaks for, to bring people off of 84 to work at a place and then take off. So that doesn't seem like a good idea to me. And I was also wondering if there's going to be any hybrid vehicles or any type of renewable energy used on the site. It's all well and good to pay Central Hudson, but we really, as a community, we should be looking at other ways to generate power and to limit greenhouse gases. There's a school right there. There's soccer fields right there. There's the old IBM wreck, the lime kiln wreck, and people are outside walking. The air gets kind of ugly in the summer times. We're pretty close to New York City, and we really don't need any more smog and stuff in our town. It would be kind of nice to think about that and maybe put some solar panels or purchase power that's green power, so we're not just increasing for the next 20, 30 years, more greenhouse gases right in our town. So I'd really like to see something about that, maybe look into that. I can't imagine, the sun is free, so I think you could make use of that. Anyway, that's really all I have. Those are some ideas that I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just as far as the trees go, evergreen trees, it's somewhat based on availability, which you can get each season, especially now. There's a large evergreen nursery in Pennsylvania that I've done a number of projects with that focuses specifically on growing screening type of evergreen trees, and we're trying to target in the 10 to 12-foot range to go in to provide that screening.
And you're really adding to existing screening that's there now.
Correct.
That's true, yes. And I'll just follow up on a couple of the other comments. As far as the employees, we are, we'll be accepting applications from, all residents of the town of East Fishkill that wish to apply for a position at the new Frito-Lay facility, in addition to regional residents as well. But we're certainly, open to all residents of East Fishkill to be employees at the facility. And as far as green infrastructure is concerned, solar is not planned at this time, but there are certainly opportunities for solar at the site in the future. Thank you.
Okay. So if there are no other comments or questions, do we adjourn this public hearing until pending receipt and review of a lot of the detail that we're looking for?
Well, it's going to be, basically, you got public comment on what the issues are. I think
Right.
the engineering details may not, is not going to change that, so.
Gotcha, all right.
But I don't think we have ARB.
Do we, the question I have is, do we need to, since we're supposed to run the public hearing technically for the ARC, I know that they showed the rendering at
Oh,
the.
the ARC is open.
Yeah, the ARC is still open. I don't know if that,
Well, actually, the planning board approves the architecture, so I don't think that would be a barrier to closing it, because they'll still have to consider a resolution.
Yeah, you
of
have to do
approval
a
to keep it
condition
to
in the
site.
resolution.
Yeah.
Did we get those elevations?
well, they did show the elevations at the, because the elevations haven't changed from when you showed them at the
They're at the-
town board
I thought they
meeting,
did
or,
change.
or they did
Oh,
change?
they did to make it
There was
under 80.
slight tweaks, I believe, since the public hearing, if I'm accurate. And there was, in the beginning of the slide deck, there is a slide that shows, not the full rendering, but at least an overview. It's not as, oh, yeah, if you go back to like the, what is it, the fourth?
I think it was like,
So it's a little far away. We did submit a more robust package, obviously, in your packet, in your materials, in the plan set that you received. In our submission last week, there's a full set of renderings in that submission, and that submission also went to the ARC, received all of those
But
renderings
the
as well.
building that was shown at the original part of the public hearing has just been reduced in height, and the elevation slightly changed.
The elevation slightly changed. It does show sort of an office building feel to it with the gray blocks.
I think that was displayed at the public hearing.
I think it was too.
Yes, right.
Yes.
And then there's a cornice at the top of the taller portion of the building, and some red striping surrounding.
I'm not sure that I see that being a real move towards an office building look, with all due respect. I think it's laudable that you want to make it look a little more like an office building, because it's precisely what we need on that 52 corridor. Have you considered some other designs?
I will turn it over to the architect, the project architect, to talk further about the
Okay.
architecture and what's been considered.
Todd Searle with CHA. Good evening.
Good evening.
I think what we're intending to do there, and I don't know if there's any pictures that show it real well, if we have some more close-ups here of the, so essentially we have, you can see on the larger portion and the lower portions that we have these panels that are kind of a contrasting color or an accent panel to kind of give the facade some scale, really, so that it kind of breaks down the scale of it, so it's not a large, austere, building. It gives it a sense of scale, so that's really the intent. And then I think the added detail of the cornice at the top also gives it some kind of scale and some detail to it as well, so.
but it doesn't contain anything that would be like glass window.
There's no windows in the building, so
Yeah.
that's one of the design challenges, I think, which is why we introduced the contrasting panels to kind of give that feel. But there are no windows in the building, in the fulfillment center. So,
Are you gonna have exterior ventilation vents, louvered vents for purge, smoke purge, ventilation
Air to air.
we will on the roof, yes.
on the roof, not on the walls, not on the
Not
sides?
on the walls, on the roof, yes.
Okay. Well, so I think it's time to close the public hearing. I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. So we've closed it, and we'll look forward to seeing the rest of the information as we move forward.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. The last item on the agenda is a resolution on Project Red Tail Blue Water Property Group. Scott, do you want to explain what we've got here? She's not here.
They didn't show up forward.
Or he, or whoever.
They didn't show up. To bring to my attention that they were gonna have excess soil. And what they first wanted to do was find out the procedure for removing it from the site. And I explained it would have to go to the zoning board, it had to explain where it was going, the number of truckloads, and all that information. And, you know, I had suggested to them maybe in lieu of trucking it off the site, they could look to see if there was ways to, you know, just lose it on the site. Okay, minimize the off-site trucking. Originally, what they wanted to do is they wanted to reduce the detention basins. They felt that they could demonstrate they had excess capacity in those. And given the flooding that we have at Lake City, you know, we would not agree to reduce, even though it was in excess, we didn't want to reduce any of those ponds. So that brought them to coming up with this plan, which is to create basically two major areas. One is to change the profile or the elevation of that north parking lot behind what would be the dome. And then the other area is along South Drive, like on the very backside of the J School, along South Drive underneath the, like the Central Hudson Continent right away there to, you know, lose the rest of the material there. I think there's like a rendering that kind of shows what's going to be like kind of a, instead of it being flat, more like a hillside, it's being lost. So I think that's, you know, the prudent thing to do. You know, the consultants have taken a look at it, made some comments, and we're working through some details, landscaping, drainage, things of that nature, but I think it's minimal impact. But I did want the board to be aware that, you know, there was that change made on site, and that we can endorse it.
How much are they raising the grade on the parking lot?
On the very north side, they're holding it, and what it was, it sloped back towards Amazon. So they just raised that side that sloped back towards Amazon. And I'm gonna say something on the order of 4 or 5 feet, something like that. It's a pretty big area. 1%, 2%, I think, cross slope to 1%.
Any questions by members of the board? If not, I'll read through a resolution. Resolution of amended site plan approval for Project Red Tail Blue Water Property Group. Whereas Project Red Tail was approved by the town on January 19th, 2021, and whereas the approval assumed that no soil would be brought in or removed from the project site, and whereas unexpected site conditions arose during construction which resulted in the generation of 100,000 cubic yards of excess soil, and whereas the applicant is requesting a minor site plan approval to allow the soil to be incorporated into the site's grading and to eliminate the need to remove the excess soil from the site, and whereas the applicant is proposing to use the excess soil by, one, raising the grade of the area on the north side of the parcel currently reserved for 500 parking spaces, and two, adding a landscape berm on the southeast portion of the parcel, and whereas the action is considered a type 2 action under seeker, no further seeker review is required. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board approves the amended site plan titled Project Red Tail Overall Grading and Drainage Plan prepared by Langen Engineering and dated 10/2/21. Be it further resolved that within 5 business days of the adoption of this resolution, the chair or other duly authorized member of the planning board shall cause a copy of this resolution to be filed with the town clerk and a copy sent to the applicant owner. And I should have done a roll call earlier. I will do it on this one. Could we first have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And Board Member Lori G.
Aye.
Board Member Craig Arto. Aye. Board Member Ed Miyoshi.
Aye.
Board Member Sarah Bledsoe.
Aye.
Board Member Richard Campbell.
Aye.
Chairperson John Eichman. I'm an aye. Carries. And unless there's other business to be brought before the planning board tonight, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.